This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey now, what's going on? Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily on a wonderful Friday. I think I've said that every day this week. Every day is wonderful here. Thanks so much, everyone who's tuning in. Michael Remis in the host chair for Hustler, who is at the RBC Canadian Open at TPC Toronto. Just put out a nice selfie of him on the grounds. I know he said hi to Mark Zucchino from Golf Talk Canada and TSN, PGA Tour Radio. So he's having a blast. He'll be back Monday. We'll hear all about it, but so fired up. Here, Connor Hrabchak joining me in a second. Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final tonight. We did have a coach firing in the NHL. Peter DeBoer fired by Dallas. Jets news. It's pretty slow for Jets. We're on Ehlers' watch. I don't know, week 2, week 3. Where is he going to sign? We'll be talking about that, I'm sure. CFL season underway. They got a new score-a-bug last night on TSN. I was really, really excited about that. And that's the NBA Finals going on. Big upset yesterday with Indiana over OKC. Great show coming up today. Chris Meanie of NHL.com. He's all about the edge stats. Going to give us some interesting takes here on the Cup Final. I'll ask him about the Jets as well. We haven't really done this before. A nice sports media segment. Jonah Siegel, YYZ Sports Media on X. He's got a podcast, BLEAV, in the Pressrow. I'm going to talk to him about Rogers, the ratings here for the Cup Final. 4.3 million? Got to be pretty pumped about that for Game 1. That is way more than last year's Game 1. And we'll talk to him about the future of watching television sports in Canada. That'll come up. Brandon Ruiki, Skates and Plates podcast. We'll talk Bombers, Jets, CFL, Stanley Cup Final. Brandon, he's good for all topics. So I'm excited to have Brandon on, get his thoughts on the big Jet story of the week, Rasmus Kupari leaving for Europe, Switzerland, 2-year deal there. And finally, it's not a Friday without a hacksaw. He's got his NFL notebook. He sent me a picture of him in an Oilers hoodie. He's watching the Cup Final down there in California. I'm sure we'll talk about quarterback controversies around the league. Who Aaron Rodgers signing in Pittsburgh toward the end of the show yesterday. Let's bring him in. Connor Hrabchak. Welcome, Connor. Thanks so much for taking the time to join me here on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun show, Remo. It's Game 2 of the Cup Final tonight. CFL kickoff last night. NBA Finals, we had a great game. Sea Bears are in action tonight against the 0-6 Brampton Honey Badgers. So Sea Bears hopefully not going to be the first win of the season for Brampton. And then they actually have a back-to-back. And the Gold Eyes were in action last night, back in action again tonight at Blue Cross Park downtown. So lots to get to today. Fired up to be here on a Friday.
Yeah, Seabirds, they're going to have the new guy, Jalen Harris. He in the lineup tonight?
I don't know.
They said in the release yesterday he's supposed to be. In that game, I'm on the CEBL Plus. I'm tuning in. I think it's on TSN Plus as well. All the games if you do subscribe to that. But they need to turn around. They're 1-4. You don't want to lose to the 0-6 Honey Badgers. They're
No.
back to back for the Sea Bears tonight, 6:30. Tomorrow, 7:00 against the Shooting Stars, and they'll return home on Wednesday. The Bombers home next Thursday. As you mentioned, the Gold Eyes, they're home all weekend. Might take it in on Sunday. Nice family afternoon. But hey, Winnipeg Sports Talk. We're having our own Gold Eyes night. I know you're going to be there, Connor. June 19 at the ballpark in the patio. There's like 10 tickets left. So if you want to go on, this is the time. We're going to sell out all those tickets. Maybe we can have some extra tickets, but you will not get the glorious wristband for patio access where we have our own private bar, table seating. What a great time. So check that out. WinnipegSportsTalk.com. Oh, all right. And Connor, we did wake up today. It is game 2 of the Cup Final. Looking forward to seeing if Edmonton can go up 2-0 or if Florida can tie it 1-1. But we did have some coaching news. And how shocked were you, if you were, to see Peter DeBoer fired by Dallas? Jim Nill announced this morning.
Not shocked at all. I think that was the least shocking news of the offseason so far, Remo, given what transpired in the pulling of Jake Ottinger in the elimination game on home ice and then throwing him under the bus after the game. I was on the Spits and Suds podcast, a Dallas Stars podcast yesterday with Gavin Spittle, who we've had on WST many times. And he was saying that his kind of thoughts on Pete DeBoer is they're either going to fire him in the offseason or give him a very short leash to start next season. And if the Stars got off to a slow start, he would be out the door. They're not waiting. And again, I see some people on Twitter, on social media, kind of shocked by it or saying, well, the right side of the Dallas Stars defense core wasn't good enough. How could Pete DeBoer manage that? He's getting fired because of how he handled the Jake Ottinger situation. Ottinger has 8 years left on his deal. Pete DeBoer had 1. It's not, I don't think, getting to 3 straight conference finals merits a firing for a head coach. So to me, it's clearly because there's a rift between Jake Ottinger and Pete DeBoer, or the rest of the locker room and Pete DeBoer. And even in the statement the Dallas Stars put out that Jim Nill wrote, he said that they think they need a new voice to lead their team going forward. So I think it's pretty evident that he lost the room. He lost the trust with his starting workhorse, Jake Ottinger. And I don't know about you, Remis, but I was not surprised at all to see this news come out of the Central Division this morning.
I think anytime you see a news, a guy's getting fired, a little surprise there. And I think It was a thing where we said, how could you bring this guy back after pulling their franchise goalie, after letting in 2 goals on 2 shots, then calling him out and not talking to him at all after you saw the video of the Ottinger, fist bumping everyone and DeBoer just walking by. How could they bring him back? And seemed like they were on track to do just that, but they had some exit meetings. I think players were able to air more issues that they had that came to light. And Jim Nill saying today, this is Taylor Baird of NHL.com reporting this, that the Game 5 loss, the comments from Peter DeBoer after that and the media was a component that played into the decision, not the reason for the decision. But again, I think this is a guy, Peter DeBoer, who you get down 2-0 in an elimination game. He panicked, pulling Jake Ottinger, not the play to take out the guy who got you to where you were. And then how he handled it after, throwing him under the bus and not communicating with him. I do think, it certainly played a big factor into this, even if you got to 3 straight conference finals. I do, go back to how the Jets handled a similar situation. Let's say in Game 7 against St. Louis, we saw Connor Hrabchak let in 2 goals. One of them I thought was questionable. And are they going to pull him? What are they going to do here? And what if in an alternate reality, Scott O'Neill does pull Connor Hrabchak after the 2 goals? Eric Comrie gets in. He's doesn't have the type of game that Connor Hrabchak does. And the Jets lose Game 7. And Scott O'Neill doesn't talk to Connor Hrabchak after the game and then says Connor's got to be better in the post-game press conference and blames the loss on him. Where would we be if Scott O'Neill acted that way? And it's amazing how you have 2 kind of similar situations with franchise goalies. 2 coaches take different avenues and we have different results.
Yeah, and the part of the Pete DeBoer comment to me as well, Remo, is he mentioned how he's lost 6 of his last 7 against the Edmonton Oilers and said that's a pretty large sample size. I'm paraphrasing, but that was basically the quote. And you basically just told the world that your franchise goaltender can't beat the Edmonton Oilers, who you've lost 2 straight conference finals to. What if the Stars meet the Oilers again next year in the playoffs? Pete DeBoer, if he was still the head coach of the Dallas Stars, the first question at his media availability would be, well, you said last year Jake Oettinger can't beat the Oilers. What's different about this year? And he'd come up with some answer. But I don't know. I thought the way that Pete DeBoer handled himself in the media after that game, kind of pinning it on his goaltender, was really, really interesting. And I keep going back to that Game 7 that you mentioned, Remo, because the second goal that Connor Hrabchak gave up in that Game 7 was much worse than either of the 2 goals that Jake Oettinger let in this game that got him pulled. Scott O'Neill stuck with his guy. He trusted his workhorse starter, which I mean, it's easy to say in hindsight, but that's clearly what Pete DeBoer, I think, should have done in that Game 5. You ride or die with your starter on home ice in an elimination game. He got burned for the decision. And then in the post game, didn't really take blame and said that his goaltender can't beat the Edmonton Oilers, who they just lost to. So a wild turn of events. And I think, going back, I was in that media room, Remis, when Pete DeBoer was asked a question by Sean Reynolds and was wondering if there were any non-coaches in the room. Well, that job is now open, and Sean Reynolds can now submit his resume for the Dallas Stars coaching job.
Someone did write in our Discord, and that's a place, if you're not there, a lot of chatting. When we're not live here, I know people like to participate in the chat and discussion as well, the comment section, but someone did note that Sean Reynolds would be available for that job or something like that. I did remember.
Yeah.
I remember that quote, but so we have some coaching news. There is all, off-season news. We'll see what happens with Dallas. They've got, a lot of players to sign and a little cap space. So I think they'll be making a couple moves. Jim Nill probably going to want to improve their defense heading into next season. But it's Game 2 of the Cup Final tonight. Oilers, Panthers. You're looking forward to this one. Connor, does Florida get back into the series here and tie it 1-1?
I'm going to go with Edmonton again tonight. I think they're rolling, and that third period and overtime especially. I thought Florida came out of the gates. First and second period was really even. Florida maybe the better team in the second period, but that third and OT, the Oilers were clearly the better team. McDavid and Draisaitl really woke up. I think they carry that momentum through tonight and take a 2-0 series lead. I think Connor McDavid is a very tough player to stop when he gets going. And maybe he found something in that Game 1 that he can exploit a little bit more in Game 2, because he had the 2 primary assists on the 2 winning goals. And when Connor McDavid is on, there's really nothing you can do to stop him. So not counting Florida out by any means, I think there's another level that they can get to as well that they didn't get to in Game 1. We know, Remis, that their style of play is to drag you into the alley, and you're not making it out alive of the game, of the series. And there wasn't really that much of that. I honestly thought maybe the Oilers were even the more physical team in Game 1. So I think the Panthers are going to get back to their game. It's going to make for another awesome game. It's going to make for an awesome series. But on home ice, I'm going to take the Oilers once again, and we'll see if that ends up happening. But again, the series isn't over. We talk about the NBA Finals. You mentioned it off the top. The Indiana Pacers stole home court advantage last night with a miraculous win, and they're still like plus 260 to win the series with a 1-0 series lead. This Stanley Cup Finals is not like that. These are 2 very even teams, so I could see tonight going either way, but I'm going to take the team with home ice and with Connor McDavid. What about you?
Yeah, it's hard for me to pick against McDavid and Draisaitl. Your Stuart Skinner playing well, and you mentioned the Oilers' depth showing up, the physical play. I'm at the point. I know there's some people here. I saw Grandpa in chat saying to start the show that I'm one of those scarred 1.0 fans. That's Jets 1.0 who can never cheer for the Oilers. Go Panthers. I don't think I'm not there. I think I'm maybe a bit too young, but I would like to see McDavid. And I find myself, you don't decide who you're going to cheer for when it's 2 teams that you have no affiliation to. Your body just tells you who it's going to be. And I'm ready to see Evander Kane lift the Stanley Cup with Edmonton. Him and Mark Stewart. There is the Jets content. It's funny. I was thinking, like last year, I was very ready for Paul Maurice to lift the Stanley Cup. I put it out on our social media, Winnipeg Sports Talk. Got, hundreds of thousands of views. Him lifting the cup. Him saying he wants Winnipeg to win. I don't know if Mark Stewart lifting it or if I put out Evander Kane lifting it would have impact, as we've had some Jets win the cup since moving on. Chris Thorburn was a big one. I got the picture of him lifting with St. Louis. Zach Bogosian with Tampa. People were pumped for him, but long line. I don't know how many other Jets have gone on since leaving 2.0 to go on to win the Stanley Cup. I'm probably missing a couple, but Paul Maurice won, Jamie Compon, but it could be Evander Kane and Mark Stewart would be the next ones on that list.
Do you know what rage bait means, Remis? If you posted Evander Kane holding the cup, that's rage bait. That's going to get people fired up. It's going to get people angry. And no more in a Edmonton Oilers jersey as well. Like Grandpa was saying in the chat there, a lot of Jets fans don't like the Oilers. A lot of Jets fans don't like Evander Kane. So that would be quite the post. And I think there'd be a lot of comments on that one.
I need to get into some more rage bait. I did see TSN tweeting like, should the Leafs retire Mitch Marner's number?
Yeah,
I think I need to start getting into rage bait. It's summer. It's a good time. Yeah. It is summer coming up, but CFL kickoff last night, week 1. Saskatchewan hosting Ottawa. How's Ottawa going to look in year 2 of Drew Brown? Saskatchewan, they have injuries to the O-line. Ended up with a ton of injuries as well. Milligan, injured. Ouellette, injured. Schaefer Baker, injured. But it was Trevor Harris connecting with Samuel Emelis in the 21-36 win. Ottawa had chances to come back near the end, but couldn't protect Drew Brown. He got really banged up. Nice game for Brown, 413 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Trevor Harris, pretty solid, 277 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. But a big win for Saskatchewan there to kick off the season. Here we go.
Yeah, I thought it was a great game to kick off the season, Remis. And going into the game yesterday, I said I was really fascinated to see how these two teams play, because for Saskatchewan, you already had the offensive line injuries, and you saw in the first quarter, first half of that game, what the game plan was to combat those O-line injuries. And it was Trevor Harris not holding the ball for longer than a second and a half or 2 seconds when he took the snap. He was getting the ball out of his hands so quickly. They're clearly trying to make it so that he doesn't have to move too much, isn't feeling all that pressure. And it worked for them. Their offense was clicking. And I think if you're Saskatchewan, you can feel really good about that win because of the injuries that they had. They had Schaefer Baker go out. They had AJ Ouellette. They had the Defensive Player of the Year, Milligan, go out in the second half as well. So a lot of injuries for Saskatchewan going into the game with the offensive line and in the game as well. And they ended up winning the game. So I think you can feel good about that if you're Saskatchewan, provided that they're healthy going forward. And then for Ottawa, I thought Drew Brown looked great. I thought they weren't out of it. Drew Brown attempted how many passes here? 41. That is typical Drew Brown. Ottawa's going to air the ball out all season long. So even when they were down multiple scores, I knew that game wasn't over. I thought Drew Brown looked great. And it's going to be really interesting to see how Saskatchewan looks next week with all of these injuries and how Ottawa looks next week. Drew Brown, like you said, clearly banged up at the end there, but I thought he played well on the road against a good defense in the Rough Riders.
Yeah, Saskatchewan banged up. One thing that stood out to me watching the game, for a season opener, it seemed like there was no one in the stands there at New Mosaic Stadium. Yeah. I talked to someone there. He said about 75% full. Having it on a Thursday a factor, as many of their season ticket holders not from Regina. I see Running Man, the Riders fan in chat saying, fans upset with the way the team has been run the last couple seasons and not showing up. So we'll see. I guess that was a side story. I did also note the new score bug there for CFL on TSN. They're going with some new graphics for, Friday Night Football's got a new look Thursday night. Here, I'll throw it up here. I liked it. I thought it was clean.
Liked it?
I noticed it.
Nice.
I noticed it right away. I think it's fun to crap on. Stuff changes, but they still got the logos, they got the initials, they got the downs. There's TSN, the time, it's all there, easy to read. I liked the look of this thing. I don't know about you, where you stood on the score bug.
Winnipeg score bug talk. Well, no, I loved it. I thought it was great. And the one thing I really liked about the presentation is when Saskatchewan or Ottawa scored a touchdown, there was like a graphic that popped up, like an NFL style. You see this in the NFL all the time. It was like Ottawa Redblacks touchdown, and there's all these graphics going up. And I thought that was really cool because in the previous score bug, it would just be the score, and then the score would get covered with touchdown. But now it seems like it's a little bit more of a presentation. I like the score bug. I think it's simple. You got the colors for each team. It's easy to read. That's the biggest thing with score bugs is sometimes, these companies make it way too complex and you just can't tell when, there's a flag or what down and distance it is and all of those things. But it's simple. It's easy to read. I like it.
The reason why I bring up score bug, because remember, was it Fox changed theirs for the Super Bowl into whatever this was with no logos, the initials and huge letters, the blank background. This is terrible. So this one sucked. So we'll give props to TSN. They seem to have a lot planned for CFL and TSN action. Game 2 of the season tonight. I'm looking forward to seeing Nick Arbuckle. Remember him, Connor?
Unfortunately, I do.
Starting at quarterback for the Argos in Montreal. And we never touched on this. No more horns in Montreal. They're banned from their stadium, from Alouettes games. We're all happy about that. Everyone is happy. It was horrible watching games in Montreal. People not tuning in because of that. I did hear I don't know, you have horn versus cowbell. There's cowbells here. I heard the cowbells on the broadcast last night, but I don't know if the microphones were just right next to the horn, but you could not watch. It was very irritating watching a game of Montreal. And I don't get that for a cowbell.
Yeah, it was. And it was constant too. Like the air horns were always going. The cowbells aren't going when, Zach Collaros is dropping back to pass. Like on offense, things are quiet. I just felt like Montreal games, it was constantly the air horns and you just can't get that noise out of your head. So that's a big win for the presentation. It makes Montreal Alouettes home games a lot easier to watch. And for tonight's game, Remis, the Alouettes going up against the Argos. I do like the Alouettes in this one. Davis Alexander, first year as a starter for him. He looked great at the end of last season. I said on yesterday's show that Montreal is my pick to be in the Grey Cup and lose to the Bombers. I'm sticking by that. Again, Ottawa lost last night, so I'm definitely not changing to them quite yet, but sticking by my initial pick with Montreal. And I think tonight at home, I think they get it done against a team that doesn't have their starter. I know Nick Arbuckle played well in the Grey Cup, and he's a more than serviceable quarterback in the CFL, but I like Montreal tonight at home with no air horns to still get it done.
Nick Arbuckle went 23 of 32 in the Grey Cup for 378 yards. That was his best game of the season. Didn't play
game of his life.
Didn't play a lot last year, and I'm sure he's not gonna have that type of game, and you're gonna have major regret about the Bombers' performance. And sorry to do that. It's week 1. We're turning the page. We're turning the page. It's all because TSN. What day was it? Wednesday night. I turn on the TV to watch Stanley Cup Game 1. And my TV was last on TSN, so TSN comes up, and they're showing the Grey Cup from last year to get ready for the season. Too much pain. Too much pain there. Connor, it's been great chatting with you. We'll catch up again, toward the end of the show, go over the lines. We're going to do the marble race. Stay tuned for that. Yep. So appreciate you coming in with your hot takes here.
Thank you very much. Yeah, see you at the end of the show for the cool bet lines.
Yes, we'll touch on that. There he is, Connor Hrabchak. Follow him on X, Connor Hrabchak. We're going to talk more hockey talk. Chris Meanie, NHL.com, about to join me, but first, here's us.
Do got to shout out Rolly's transfer, folks. If you got a move coming up this year, holler at our friends at Rolly's, family owned and operated for over 60 years in Winnipeg and the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. And you might just be lucky enough to get your stuff moved in the Winnipeg Sports Talk truck, which you can see running all over the streets of Winnipeg. If you do have a move, head on over to their website at rollys.com. Click on request an estimate. Put in the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies. And then let them know when and where you're planning on moving and what needs to go. And our friends at Rolly's will turn it around quickly with a great quote and get you locked in for the white glove service. that they are famous for. For your next move, make it Rollies, the most trusted name in Manitoba and moving. Find out more, request an estimate today over at rollies.com. Great seeing Dr. Terry on the weekend out of the soccer game and the Match Play Championship. Of course, St. Patel Dental Center, proud sponsor of Winnipeg Sports Talk, serving generations of Winnipeggers in Manitoba out in the old St. Patel area. But it's worth the drive wherever you are in the city because they've got a beautiful new facility, state-of-the-art equipment with free parking right behind the building. It couldn't be any more convenient. And a full array of dental services for patients from 6 months to 99 plus. Everything from checkups and cleanings all the way to things like dental implants. For more information on all of their services and to make an appointment, hit them up online at stpateldental.ca. We got a nice weekend, a nice few days coming up. We're going to talk to Andrew Collier later on about the upcoming Gold Eyes homestand. Also a great time to maybe try a couple great new summer drinks, including the Canadian Club Pack, which is not just the famous Canadian Club and ginger ale. They've also added a citrus smash, which is amazing, and the half and half, which I think is going to be our go-to on the golf course this year. Arnold Palmer, half iced tea, lemonade, with the great taste of Canada's iconic Canadian whiskey. Canadian Club, pick it up today at your local Manitoba liquor marts when you pop by. And just before we bring in Dave, big weekends coming up. Boating, camping, jet skis. Got to make sure you got batteries for all these things, folks. And this is an important time to remind you all that you can shop local and save a lot of money by driving past the big box stores over to Manitoba Battery. 2 locations in Winnipeg to serve you, Logan Avenue and Dovercourt Drive in the south end of the city. And there you'll find the biggest and best selection of batteries for literally everything at the best prices in town. You'll save up to $50 a battery for your campers and boats by dealing with Manitoba Battery. And hey, if you're busy and you can't make it down, no sweat. Go online to manitobabattery.com or give them a call. They'll deliver you your batteries for free anywhere in the city with any purchase over $60. It is just that easy. For all your battery needs, keep it local, get the best price in town with Manitoba Battery, 2 locations, and manitobabattery.com.
There's us. He's at the RBC Canadian Open. We'll hear from him next week. My next guest, so pumped to have him on. He's with NHL.com, bringing you the stats, analysis. Really pumped to bring him in. It's Chris Meanie with NHL.com. Chris, thanks so much for taking the time to join me today here on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Hey, no problem, Michael. It's nice to chat with you. You and I chatting here and there throughout the hockey season, so it's nice to join you. You're killing it in place of Hustler, but yeah, exciting time of the year. I know the Jets are finished, but as soon as the Stanley Cup is raised, it's like it's go time again. You know, the draft and free agency. But always a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks again for coming on. Love reading your work at NHL.com. You know, it has been a couple weeks here since the Jets are eliminated. What did you think of their performance in the playoffs? Seemed to answer a bunch of questions in that Game 7 against St. Louis, but falling just short against Dallas.
Yeah, that first round was highly entertaining. I thought it was going to go the distance, and I was kind of giving the edge to the Blues, but I was very impressed with Winnipeg and how they played, and just what a remarkable finish to that first round, right? The Lowry back to the point, Ehlers fans on it, gets it back to Lowry, over to Connor, one touch, Perfetti back of the net. It was a nice moment for Winnipeg and for their fans getting to the second round. And I thought for the most part, they were the better team against the Dallas Stars at 5-5. I really was impressed with how they played. I thought that the Stars would kind of make quick work of the Jets, to be honest with you. But Winnipeg, watching them play, I thought that they were the better team for the majority of that series at 5-5. That Hellebuck started to get his swagger back as well. So it was I know it's not what Jets fans want, disappointing finish, but this team has been pretty solid over the past couple of years. And I think, a few takeaways for me, like Cole Perfetti, I thought had a great season, a great year. And, if you're a Jets fan, you have to be happy with what you saw from him, especially in the postseason. And then moving forward, that he's only going to get better.
Yeah, certainly was a breakout for Cole Perfetti, especially in that Game 7. I gave him my Game 7 legend award, which we'll be talking about for years to come. But with the end of the season comes changes. The biggest topic here, since the season ended, has been Nikolai Ehlers. You think the Jets, or how big of a loss would it be if they can't keep him? And where do you see potential landing spots for Ehlers?
I think it would be a significant loss. I don't view the Jets as a one-line team. Of course, they are stacked with Scheifele and Connor and then Gabe Vilardi. But after that, we're talking about Perfetti, but I think it's very important to keep Nikolai Ehlers on the squad. I know they do have the cap space to get it done. And, 8+ is probably something that I would imagine he's going to get. And if he goes to the open market, he could flirt with 9. I mean, he's a great winger. He can score. He can play in all situations for you. He can play on the power play. He can move the puck around on the PP. He can wire it as well. So I think it's very important. Yeah, because I thought the Jets were kind of quiet at the deadline. I know 2 years ago they were aggressive with Monahan and Toffoli, and I really liked those moves, even though they didn't work out for them. But you have to have some balance up and down your lineup. So to lose a guy like Nikolai Ehlers, I think would be significant. So hopefully, for Jets fans, that they can bring him in. And to ask your other question, like another fit, I mean, every team across the league would love to have a guy like Nikolai Ehlers, on the wing. Again, power play, whether it's the first unit or the second unit. So no team's really coming to mind. I think we'll see a couple shakeups across the league with certain teams. But does he go to, a team like, I don't know, like Boston, or a team that missed the playoffs? Like, I don't know. I don't think he's going to just go somewhere where the most money is offered. I think he wants to win. And, Winnipeg is a place that, he can certainly have some more success there. So we'll see what does happen across the league. But I think he's if he does, he's signed by July 1st, will be one of the better free agents out there. There's no question about that.
Yeah, July 1, I feel like, has shaping up to be one of the more interesting July 1s in the past. Some big names like Ehlers, Mitch Marner, John Tavares could be changing teams. And you haven't really seen that, as more and more teams are locking up their young players through free agency. We did have some coaching news today. How surprised were you when you saw that the Stars parted ways with head coach Peter DeBoer?
Honestly, not very surprised, despite the resume. We all know that he's perfect in Game 7s. I think he's 8-0. I do believe that his teams have been to the conference finals in 6 of the last 7 years. He brought the Devils to the Stanley Cup Finals. He brought the Sharks to the Stanley Cup Finals. He has a heck of a resume. There's no doubting that. He's also, coached some really good teams. I don't want to take anything away from the success that he's had, but if you're the Dallas Stars, you've been to the conference finals 3 years in a row, and you've fallen short with home ice, I believe, in a majority of those conference finals. And I didn't love the effort from the team against the Oilers on home ice when they were bounced. Credit to the Oilers. They were pretty stingy at 5-5, but I think the Stars had maybe 4 shots in the second at 5-5, 4 in the third. And of course, Jake Ottinger let them down a little bit. But when I listened to Pete DeBoer's comments after the game, I just felt like that was it. It's one thing to pull your goalie and your starting goalie, 2 shots, 2 goals, but the way that he pulled them after a timeout, and it seemed like Jake Ottinger thought that he was going back to the net, then he circles back and he's out, and then clearly he's frustrated. But he had a great season. He's one of the better young goalies in the league. You want to stick with your goalie that kind of got you there and let him kind of navigate through the ups and the downs. And I didn't think it was his fault that the Stars were down 2-0. So I didn't like that pulling. I didn't love the comments, some rumblings inside the organization from players inside the locker room. Didn't love some of his post-game comments as well. So sometimes you just need a new voice, right? And I look at the Florida Panthers when they hired Paul Maurice. Didn't they have a heck of a season before that? And of course, they made some changes with Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar for Matthew Tkachuk, but they bring in a new voice like Paul Maurice, and now look at them. They've been to the Stanley Cup Finals 3 straight seasons. So I don't think it's the end of the world. I guess they waited pretty late. All the other teams have hired their coaches. We'll see what they do moving forward. I'm sure that they have some sort of plan, but I'm not surprised. And I think it's a good move because the Stars, they're loaded. It's going to be a very interesting offseason for them as well. They have roughly $5 million in cap space. They have Jamie Benz, unrestricted free agent, Mikael Granlund, Matthew Shane, Cody Ceci. They got to sign Bork, who's a nice young player, restricted free agent. And then after next year, they'll have Thomas Harley and Jason Robertson as RFAs. So they're tight against the cap at the moment. So this is maybe one of a couple moves we'll see from the Dallas Stars in the offseason.
Yeah, it'll be definitely interesting for them, you mentioned, but looking ahead to the game tonight, Edmonton leading 1-0. What did you see was your biggest takeaway there from game one that gave Oilers the overtime win and a 1-0 series lead?
Yeah, a couple things, Michael. The speed, for one. This is something that we highlighted in one of our Edge articles over at NHL.com. Well, we talked about heading in, just the speed that the Edmonton Oilers have. I mean, 532 speed bursts of 20 miles per hour. It's nearly 200 more than Florida. You know, the Panthers did a decent job of slowing down Edmonton for the most part, but still 33-17, the speed burst of 20 plus miles per hour. We all know that McDavid is up at the top. He's got 144 20 plus mile an hour speed burst, which is 59 more than the next closest player in Rewucki. Hence is the only player with at least 15, 22 plus mile an hour speed burst, and he has 33. So in that first game, there wasn't a player with more than 4. He had 10 speed bursts of at least 20 miles per hour. He's killing penalties, which is something he didn't really do in the regular season. I think 0.84 miles, total miles on the PK, and he's flirting with 4 miles here in the playoffs. So your superstar players, you know, he's showing up. Draisaitl as well, who had a quiet Stanley Cup final last year, just 3 assists and 2 points at 5-5. So he has 2 goals. Of course, the game winner set up by Connor McDavid, 2 primary assists. He had 1 on the game tying goal with Ekholm as well. The other thing that I noticed was the high danger chances and the high danger shots, heavily in favor of the Oilers, 15-6, the high danger shots. Now, Florida scored 3 high danger goals, so 50%, not a bad rate for them in the high danger areas. But Sergei Bobrovsky, you know, the 15 high danger shots he faced is the first time he had faced more than 11 throughout the whole Stanley Cup playoffs. This is a team in Florida that's been stingy at 5-5. They don't give up a whole lot. Only 25 high danger shots against Carolina in the 3rd round. So that's one thing I noticed as well. We'll see what happens with the lines. Before I got on, it did look like Edmonton was going to keep Draisaitl and McDavid away from each other. When the game was 3-1, Knobloch put them together, and it certainly got them back in the hockey game. And that's a card that he has that he can play at any moment. So if Edmonton trails again early in the game, they have 7 comebacks in trailing at any point. 7th win after trailing at any point in the playoffs was 1 shy of a franchise record. I think the record may be 10 in the playoffs for a team that's won the Stanley Cup. So they, you know, in the past, it felt like, you know, if the Oilers are down 2 or 3 goals, it was going to be one of those games where they have to score 6 or 7. Skinner's played good. They've been solid defensively as well. PK's has been their one issue throughout the entire postseason, but Skinner's played well. The speed is there, and we'll see how Florida can adjust, especially if it is going to be Draisaitl and McDavid at some point in the game. It's a big load for Barkov and Reinhart to try to slow those 2 guys down.
Yeah, Ryan Rashog putting out on X. Line pairings look the same for the Oilers, 97-29 on separate lines. But as you mentioned, they do have that club in their bag where if things aren't going well, put them together, then it is tough to spot. Coming into the series, you know, what was your prediction? And can Florida tie it up here to send it back tied 1-1?
My prediction was Oilers in 7. I am a big believer in learning how to lose before you learn how to win. I mean, history does seem to be on Edmonton's side as the last 3 teams that have lost the Stanley Cup Finals to go back the next year have won. Florida, certainly one of those teams. You can go all the way back to the early 80s and Wayne Gretzky's first taste of the Stanley Cup Finals against the Islanders lost. Him and Messier, I'm sure they learned a thing or two and beat the Islanders the following year. The same sort of deal with Sid the Kid and Evgeny Malkin in 07, lost to the Red Wings the very next year, beat Detroit. And here we are with McDavid last year, you know, just seeing him and in tears and freaking out on the team. Like, let's go. This is the finals. It just felt like there's no way that he's going to let his team lose again. It's just one game. I, as I mentioned, I did think that this series would go the distance. I still believe that it will go the distance. It was a great first game. You know, Florida's been very strong on the road. That was just their 3rd loss. They were very much in that game until late in the 3rd period. I thought the ice did tilt in Edmonton's favor, but I like them to bounce back tonight. You know, again, this is a good road team. You don't want to see the game end that way. A puck over the glass, delay a game penalty. It is what it is. But they were very much in that game. And I thought that second line in particular with Sam Bennett, who leads the playoffs in goals with 12. He's got 6 over his last 6 games. But Bennett, Verhaeghe, and Tkachuk, as a trio together, when they were on the ice at 5-5, Panthers generated 24 shot attempts, which is more than any line in that game. And that trio has combined for 25 points over the last 6 games. So Matthew Tkachuk, fairly quiet in the first round, even quiet against the Leafs. We know he didn't play since the Four Nations face-off, so maybe not 100%, but he looked himself against Carolina. And I think for Hagee, going back on that line, there's been times where he's been playing with Barkov and Reinhart, Rodriguez with those two, and for Hagee with Bennett and Tkachuk, I think that's a trio that I'll have my eye on here tonight. But I like Florida to get back into this series. And, even if they lose tonight, I won't count them out of it, because you're not out of it until you lose on home ice. And we've seen both teams come back in the playoffs after losing the first 2 games of a series. But I do think that Edmonton, despite not having Hyman there, this is a big part of the grit that the Oilers have. I think he had over 100 hits, in 16 games, and the team, just over 600, so 6 their hits. But I thought Kane, Podkolzin, Kapanen combined for 19 hits. I thought that the physical presence was still there, and you need to have it against Florida. You don't need to change your game all that much, Michael, but you need to have a little bit of a physical presence against the Florida Panthers. But it was a highly entertaining game 1, and hopefully we get 6 more.
Yeah, Evander Kane throwing the body around, Corey Perry stepping in on power play 1 for Hyman. So things were certainly going Edmonton's way, but it could change tonight for game 2. I know you're a big fan of wagering, Conn Smythe Trophy, McDavid, big favorite. Who's your next best pick here? I mean, he's minus 147 here on Coolbet. You got Bobrovsky plus 440, Draisaitl plus 440, Barkov 1,400, and Sam Bennett plus 1,600. There's some other interesting names as well.
Yeah, Sam Bennett is somebody that we've been talking a little bit about over at NHL.com/fantasy on the podcast. I think I mentioned him in the 3rd round at nearly 60-1. I like his game. As I mentioned, this is a guy that's going to get paid here in the offseason. I talked about him leading the playoffs in goals, and 6 in his last 6. He's tied for 4th in points with 18. And, he's right there with McDavid in terms of shots and shot attempts. He's tied with McDavid in terms of shot attempts up at the top. Nobody else has more shot attempts at 5-5 than these two guys, and his 56 shots ranks 2nd. And the same sort of deal at 5-5, just behind Connor McDavid. He's got 5+ shots in each of his last 2 games, 3+ in 10 games. Consider him maybe for 3 shots tonight, and continue to hit the score sheet. I think the number on him is pretty solid. He also leads the playoffs in high danger goals, and he's tied for 1st in high danger shots. So he's been very impressive in my opinion, and I know it could go to a number of guys in Florida if they do win the cup again. Rewucki, Barkov, as you mentioned, if they can find a way, if Barkov can find a way to slow down McDavid and Draisaitl, I suppose he could be the front runner, but he would need to probably do something productive offensively as well. Right? He can't just play in his own end, trying to slow those 2 guys down. So I think that Bennett should have a shorter number. I would say that if he continues this pace and the Panthers win and it's a high scoring series, and maybe it doesn't go to Bob, and maybe Sam Bennett is somebody to jump on after McDavid, it's Draisaitl. I know in the 3rd round he was 15-1. Before game 1, I think he was plus 850. Now he's got the 2 goals. If this is a long series and he scores 6 or 7 goals, he's just 1 point behind McDavid. It's hard to imagine McDavid not getting it. I do believe though this time, and I'd love to get your thoughts, if the Panthers win, I think it will be a Panther. Last year, McDavid did some historic stuff. Still, a long way away from catching Gretzky for the most points in a playoff run. But I think this time, if the Panthers win, there'll be a Panther getting the Conn Smythe Trophy. But I mean, you can never count out Connor.
Yeah, he's leading the skaters in the playoffs, 28 points. Draisaitl, 27. Next closest Panther is Sam Bennett, 18. He is leading in goals, as you mentioned. I was going to say it could be crazy if McDavid wins back-to-back, losing in the Cup final. I don't know if that would ever be topped, but no. The Conn Smythe we've got around. I know you've got your eye on. Is this new for this year? I saw you talking about this. Hustler was talking. The player to receive the first Stanley Cup handoff. This is what I think is hilarious that you can actually wager, because I think that was a conversation that you would have with your friends, maybe sitting while watching. Oh, who's he gonna hand it off to? But now you can actually wager, and I know you like Seth Jones he's plus 1,000. Former Jet Nate Schmidt plus 600, and Nugent Draisaitl are the favorites for Edmonton. But what a wild thing that you can actually wager real dollars on.
Yeah, it is crazy. I think this came out when Vegas won the cup. I remember thinking, who was gonna. I think at the time we hit a big Marchessault Conn Smythe that was like 30-1 halfway through round 2 against the Oilers. He started to heat up, and I remember looking at that market, not seeing it before, but then trying to think, who's going to get this cup here? Is it Pietrangelo going to get the cup, or like is it going to be Eichel? And just like, what is happening here? But there are certain things you look at. I mean, I think about back in the day when Ray Bourque went to Colorado, right? He hadn't won a cup. You knew that he was going to get the Stanley Cup. I believe Nugent Hopkins was the favorite heading into the Stanley Cup Finals. He's been there a long time, but my thought was on the NHL Fantasy on Ice podcast, it would have to go to Draisaitl. Right? I mean, Perry's won one before. If he hadn't won a cup before, maybe it could be him. But I would say that McDavid hands it to his buddy Leon Draisaitl to get the cup first. And on the Florida side, I was just trying to pick a player that hadn't won before. I think Seth Jones is probably a guy that should be favored over Nate Schmidt. You mentioned former Jet, but he hasn't won a Stanley Cup before. I don't believe. He had some moments with Vegas early on in his career, but I'd say Seth Jones. And again, maybe Marchand is like a dark horse. I know he's won a Stanley Cup before, but he did score a goal in game 1. We'll see what the rest of the finals look like for him. He brings a lot to the squad as well. So it could potentially, Barkov's a guy like, hey, let's give this to Marchand, but my 2 picks would be Draisaitl and it would be Seth Jones. But it is funny I can't even really say it with a straight face, but it is something that you can certainly wager on.
It's becoming like it's Super Bowl. Like, who's the MVP gonna thank, or what's the color of the Gatorade? But hey, the first handoff almost up there with the Conn Smythe in terms of discussion topic. Chris, it's been great having you on the show. I've loved reading your work now at NHL.com all year. If I ever need some tips on props or fantasy, you're certainly the guy for that, and you really brought it here today on Winnipeg Sports Talk. So thank you so much for taking the time to join me.
I appreciate it. Yeah, if you're looking for some props for Game 2 and the rest of the Stanley Cup Finals, we'll have you covered over to NHL.com/fantasy. Really appreciate the invite. Enjoy the game tonight.
There he is, Chris Meanie. Follow him on X at Chris Meanie. Great talking with him. We're going to get into a different type of conversation, sports media talk, talking about Rogers, the NHL rights, ratings, what's it going to look like in the next 10 years watching sports on your TV in Canada. Jonah Siegel, YYZ Sports Media, will join me shortly. But first, here's us.
Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Winnipeg Sports Talk, and so much else in our sporting community and city. Of course, Princess Auto has 3 locations in Winnipeg and Manitoba, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, and Brandon, where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. You can always find out more online and shop 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com as well. I'm getting ready to get out to Aikens in a month or so. And listen, I've already seen people out on the river fishing this year. Fishing season is finally here. We got some gorgeous weather. But if you're thinking about maybe taking that fishing experience to the next level, get over to aikenslake.com and find out more about availability and options for the 2025 fishing season at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. World-class fishing and even more world-class hospitality from the Aikens team and the Terren family. And you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg, including a short flight. Again, aikenslake.com for more information on the 2025 season. And I encourage you to check out all their social media feeds at Aikens Lake for more on what the Aikens experience is all about. Of course, we are getting into that time, folks, where it's wedding season, a lot of busy weekends coming up for many of you. If this coincides with you needing to up your menswear game, head on over to our friends at F Apparel at 190 Smith Street. Just celebrated 15 years in business here in the Peg, featuring the best in men's clothing with custom suits starting at just over $400. Chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. And of course, speaking of weddings, if you are just getting engaged or planning a wedding, make sure to talk to the guys at F about a special discount for the wedding party when the guys get their suits for the big day over at F Apparel, 190 Smith Street downtown. Find out more or make an appointment to come in for a fitting online at that's EPHapparel.com.
There's us. He'll be back next week in the host chair. But I'm hosting today. Michael Remis in for Hustler. Been here since Wednesday. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. If you're still here, watching, listening, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, turn on the notifications. Tells YouTube we're putting out some great content. Maybe it'll get shown to some more people. And if you hit the notifications, like I suggested, it'll tell you when we've got some new stuff out here. I know Connor Hrabchak, who joined me earlier, he'll be back on Sunday with WST Sunday Live. You don't want to miss that. Sports media, topic we don't really cover too often, but hey, it affects everyone when you're watching games on whatever channel they're on, and ratings always comes up as well. And I'm so happy to be joined by our next guest, Jonah Siegel, YYZ Sports Media on X, the BLEAV in the Press Box podcast. Both links to that in our description. We're going to be talking about Rogers, their takeover of media in Canada. And what does this mean for TSN and Bell moving forward? Here he is, Jonah. Thanks so much for coming on. You're a sports media commentator in Canada. Excited. Thanks so much for taking the time here.
Nice to see you, Michael. Great to finally meet. How are things in your town today?
It's warm, a little smoky. We'll take it, and CFL is kicking off, so we're a bit upset that the Bombers not partaking in week 1, but we will see them at home next week. I'm so excited to talk to you about sports media, ratings, and the future, what it's going to look like in Canada. But Rogers, they have to be jumping up and down, high-fiving in their offices right now. You noted 4.5 million viewers for Game 1. That's more than last year's Game 1 of 3.2 million. This, with all the Canadian teams in the playoffs advancing to the second round, this seems like a big win here for them in their office.
It's massive. I mean, we can't really understate how big it is. Last year, the entire series, Game 7, the ultimate game between these same two teams, drew a 7.5 share, which is pretty good. Like, that's a big number. So for them to hit a 4-5 on Game 1, when a lot of people were really predicting a down number, mostly because there's a lot of malaise in the, I hate to say it because I know who I'm talking to, but in the Toronto market, that typically drives the number. Hockey is a regional sport, and Toronto's now been out of it for a short amount of time, and people are still ticked off. So a lot of people thought that number would be probably in the 2.5 to 3 number. They'd be lucky to get that number last year that they got. And wow, people were definitely tuned in. And I would imagine because the game was so tight and so close, people stayed longer and they probably tuned in later.
Yeah, going to overtime, you have Connor McDavid, and I think the fact that it's a rematch maybe helps because you want to see Edmonton do it again. I don't know, a lot of talk about if cities across Canada really care about a Canadian team winning. Most cities care about their own team, but with Connor McDavid, I think that you certainly have that. In Canada, high ratings. U.S., Edmonton, Florida, not exactly a draw.
Right. I mean, so we have to put a little asterisk next to the number. So the number's not great. It's one of the lowest rated Stanley Cup games ever that's been put on there. It did a 2.42, and but that was on TNT and True TV. So, it's kind of like when games are on Amazon up here. You have to subscribe to that on your cable service. You have to go hunting for it in the States. You have to really be a hockey fan as opposed to it being on either ESPN or ABC or a network where, flipping around, oh, the hockey game is on, right? So considering the fact that it's on a premium channel, the number's not so horrible. I think that the NHL headquarters are probably pretty happy with it, all things considered. And it just goes to show you can make anything you want out of a number. It is awful. It's not great. It's some of the lowest since, if you exclude COVID, it's really one of the lowest ever. But again, being on TNT, not being on a huge network, a pretty good number, all things considered.
Yeah, I do like what they've done on TNT with the broadcast, the panel, creating a lot of viral moments there with Wayne Gretzky and Biz. So I have enjoyed the way they've split up the rights there in the U.S. But I wanted to ask you about Rogers. It's been a pretty interesting last couple of months, going back to September when they announced they'd buy out Bell's share of Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment for $4.7 billion, getting 75% ownership of the Raptors, Leafs, Argos. Then in April, they announced a 12-year, $11 billion national rights agreement with the NHL. How do these moves play together into Rogers' strategy?
Well, Michael, you can't untie them. They're absolutely tied together. And Edward Rogers Jr. is making a massive move to become a preeminent player, not just in Canada, but in North America in sports and media entertainment. I mean, that's what's happening here. So in the first sense, he buys out majority of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. And again, I know that's a bad word in your market, but it is the biggest property, and it gives him complete control of the Maple Leafs, the Blue Jays, the Raptors, to a lesser degree of importance here, the Argos and TFC and the Toronto Marlies. So all of a sudden, one guy in an entity owns everything, and that is just dominating them. It's a dominant market. It drives massive TV numbers. It drives massive business marketing numbers, and it's huge value add to Rogers as an entity as well. The same time, he goes out and he re-ups his deal for the NHL. And that doesn't necessarily mean all games are only going to be on Rogers. He's probably going to sub-license that down the road. But I would keep a very keen eye on what he does. He's not going to keep this entity under Rogers. He's not going to keep an entity under MLSE. Word is he's going to create something new. He's going to go get partners. It could be a public company, and it will be massive. I mean, at the one time where media isn't doing so hot, sports content does. It's very well. Just look south of the border, what's going on there. And at a time where investment in sports is suddenly changing, in the U.S., you've got private equity into the NFL, which is the biggest moneymaker. This is a win-win for Rogers personally and for his company.
Yeah, I was surprised the NHL went with one rights holder. You saw in the U.S., they split out between ESPN and TNT. And after the first deal Rogers and the NHL did, you thought maybe they would, split it off and see TSN get into it. We'll get to TSN in a second, but it seemed for the NHL, this was just too much money for them to turn down. And Rogers now has the option to sub-license it like they have been to Amazon for the last year.
Look, Michael, the way we consume content is ever evolving. We're on a podcast. You're going to push this out to YouTube. My kids are in their early 20s. They're cable nevers, right? Like there used to be these things called cord cutters. There's now cable nevers. And everyone has hanging on their wall a beautiful flat panel display. And that device is network agnostic, whether it's Apple, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Netflix, Amazon, Rogers, Bell, whoever. And ultimately, they're going to figure out a way to give us access to that content easily. So if you want to watch the Jets game, you're going to say into your remote, Winnipeg Jets game. And no matter what platform it's on, as long as you've paid for that access, you're going to get the game. And ultimately, right now, as it relates to hockey, that's going through Rogers. And you got to give Gary Bettman a lot of credit. I know people don't necessarily love the guy, but his owners have to be just laughing all the way to the bank. He just increased a deal that everyone thought was a complete dog. He got more money. He basically got the same deal, but in US dollars with a premium. And he now has the right to go out and do an Amazon-like deal or multiple Amazon deals as the world evolves, as I said earlier. This is a massive, massive win for Gary Bettman and the NHL owners.
So if you're Rogers, they own the major teams in all the sports, Blue Jays, Leafs, NHL rights. So now that they have all of this, how are they going to change how we watch sports in Canada for the duration of this deal?
Well, I mean, that's what I think. I think that, we've seen already Amazon land, and they've landed really well. The production quality you were talking about, you're liking TNT. We haven't talked about this, but I would imagine you equally like the production value that Amazon has brought on Monday nights. It's a different game. It's an entirely different package. They can go out and do a bigger deal with Amazon. That is the apple of Gary's eye. In the US, when that deal comes up, they're going to want to do a similar deal and a bigger deal to get Amazon and TNT and others. As I said, the streaming wars are coming. So at the very top of the funnel, you have, or at the bottom of the funnel, I guess you have Rogers owning the rights, depending on how you look at it. Who buys rights from underneath them to get what is very open for debate. And they don't need to own 100% of it. They can do another Amazon deal like this. They could do 2 or 3 of them. So I think we all have to just kind of sit back and see what other deals they're going to do to sublicense that content out. At the end of the day, the hockey fan is going to be able to watch their game pretty much on almost whatever they want as in terms of digital. It doesn't have to be a cable subscriber. If you have access to the internet, in all likelihood, you're going to find a way to get the game. And at the end of the day, Rogers is going to get your money.
Yeah, when you're talking about Rogers trending up, but TSN used to be the #1 sports network in Canada, and they still have a number of great properties. CFL we saw last night, NFL as well, huge Hockey Canada, curling. But what does this all mean for Bell? They sold their share of MLSE. They're not in on the NHL national rights deal, and now their president, Stuart Johnson, leaves to be CFL commissioner. What do you see the future for Bell and TSN?
Well, those are 2 different. I mean, Bell has pretty much said, they're no longer focusing on anything that isn't, #1 priority and revenue generator. The funny thing about TSN is it actually makes money. The question becomes, do they re-up their regional deals that they have right now in the NHL? And they have a bunch of those. They have an agreement as part of a requirement with the acquisition and sale of MLSE shares to keep talking through that and acquire rights to games. Are they going to do that? Nobody said how much that sublicense is going to cost, but there's multiple teams in the NHL where they do regional rights, so they could stay there. The CFL is interesting. Like, I would imagine the CFL is probably thinking that life is really good with their former executive now with the commissioner. I mean, that TV deal is coming up. Let's be honest, there isn't a massive demand and high competition to get CFL games on television. I don't know who else, if anyone else, is going to bid. So to the extent they're going to keep TSN afloat, I would look to them to reacquire those rights moving forward. I don't see anybody else bidding on them. I saw last night, I believe it was, that they're going to start showing those games at the same time on CTV as they do TSN. Is that them sticking his toe into the water to see what that looks like from a ratings perspective? Ultimately, at the end of the day, it comes down to streaming. I don't think anybody cares. As long as they can watch it on their big screen TV or on their phone, they don't have to pay for cable to get it, as long as someone's ultimately getting that feed for them to watch.
Yeah, you mentioned the TSN owning regional rights. They do have the Jets rights here, Habs, Sens. I do wonder what if they're going to re-up with Winnipeg. Last year, the deal is coming up. I mean, we've seen in the U.S., teams go out on their own and create their own channels. I don't think Canada's big. I don't think we're going to be seeing that here. I don't know what you think the future is for regional rights if Rogers even would decide to scoop up all of them.
This is just a guess. I would think at this point they're kind of maxed out, and to the extent, I mean, unless Bell says we're out, we're not re-upping, I don't think they'll go nowhere. But I think those are good properties for Bell. I think, as I said, TSN makes money. I don't think they're necessarily losing their shirts on any of those regional games. So we'll see what happens. I would be very surprised if Bell gets out of that game entirely. Could it happen? Absolutely, but that's not where I think this is headed. And no, I don't see the Jets or anybody else right now going into a regional network type model.
Yeah, we'll be tuned in. I hope that, we've all enjoyed the TSN broadcast of the Jets game, so we'll keep our eyes open to see if there is an extension there. And we haven't really talked about streaming. It seems in the U.S., Apple's got games, Netflix, Amazon, Roku, Peacock. There's so many. I almost feel lucky. YouTube. I almost feel lucky here in Canada that there was only 2 players. But could we see a scenario where these streamers dip their toes into Canadian sports broadcasting more so than just Amazon with Monday Night Hockey?
I gotta believe that everybody's looking at Amazon and watching that. I mean, Netflix. I believe Netflix just did a massive deal for wrestling. Where you put that on the sports umbrella is up to you, I guess. But listen, you got to fish where the fish are, and the eyeballs are in streaming, right? It's the older generation that is having a more difficult time finding their games. I'll take the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays are a Canada-wide phenomenon. There's no louder noise than when the Blue Jays are on Apple TV that people can't find the game. For the younger audience, it's pretty easy to find, and that's why I think it's going to be incumbent on the devices themselves to figure out a way. And Apple's really been the roadblock so far to make it super, super easy to switch between networks and platforms within one device, so that if the Jays happen to be on, or the Jets happen to be, or the Blue Bombers happen to be on one streaming service on Monday, and the next night they're on a different streaming service, it doesn't take a PhD in technology to find the content that you're looking for. I think they'll get there. I think that solution is coming, but right now it's kind of roadblocked. And I think once that becomes easier for consumers, I think you're going to see a bevy of opportunities for different streaming services to own content. And again, at the end of the day, whoever owns those rights, that's who's going to make the money, with the league at the top of it.
Yeah, don't get me started there on the switching of the channels. So first of all, I had to go over to my grandmother's house during the hockey season and put on the Monday Night Hockey. But it was pretty easy. I told her, hey, speak into the remote, put on the Jets, and she couldn't believe how easy it was. But as with streaming, you can't switch channels as quickly if they're on two different apps at the same time. A bit tougher than it is right now. We'll see if they can figure that out. But Jonah, I love your work on X, YYZ Sports Media, the BLEAV in the Pressrow podcast. I'll put the links in the description of this video. Very interesting stuff as well. So thank you so much for taking the time to join me here today on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Well, it's my pleasure. Happy to come anytime and talk about any of this stuff with you. I thought you were going to start talking about wrestling, and I was going to tell you I'm definitely out of my league with that. But no, listen, this is a technology issue. This is not a content issue, and it has to become easier. Back in the day, switching between ABC and NBC or Global or what have you required a physical box with buttons. I'm not sure if anyone who listens to this remembers those brown box cable buttons that had the long cord to them. Things evolve. This is a technology challenge. The technology companies are going to make it much easier to switch between, so there isn't that massive delay when you want to flip between platforms and channels. I think we're in the gray area right now. We're in the early days, and I think that's going to change over the coming months. That's the solution that I'm looking for, and I think we're getting there sooner rather than later.
Perfect. Jonah, appreciate you taking the time today, and we'll definitely have to catch up again down the road.
Thanks, Michael.
Royal Sports has tons of new, many exclusive pieces of Bomber merch that you won't find anywhere else. Obviously, you've got all the Jets gear right now, a lot of it on sale. Tons of Major League Baseball, Blue Jays, NBA as well in that place. The biggest hockey section, 12 months a year. But as we get into summer, soccer, baseball, softball, tennis, the biggest and best selection of athletic shoes you'll find anywhere, and tons of bikes as well, including e-bikes. So get on down to Royal Sports and get ready for summer. 750 Pembina Highway. Follow them on Instagram as well at Royal Sports Winnipeg. I should mention that Yeti section for everyone that's camping and heading to the beach. They have so many cool Yeti mugs, coolers, you name it. Another great thing to keep in mind before you head out of town over the course of this summer. Tomorrow night, it's game one. Panthers, Oilers. Boston Pizza is the place to be with your gang for Stanley Cup playoff hockey. You got the game on all the screens with big sound, and of course, the BP playoff menu featuring the Canadian All-Star Poutine. Wing flights are back. They've got the Scoville Showdown for you crazies that love it hot, and a couple of amazing new pizzas for the playoffs, the Triple Pep and the Wingman Pizza as well. Pop down to Boston Pizza for game one of the playoffs. And hey, if you are staying at home, you can always get the great taste of BP and the new playoff menu by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. A big cheers to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
There's Hustler. Great having him step in there. He'll be back next week. I'm in the host chair. So pumped. Oh, first of all, great conversation with Jonah Siegel, YYZ Sports Media. Great follow. Great conversation. I see the comments in chat. People are interested. How are you going to be watching sports? Are you a cable? Are you a cable never? Are you a cord cutter? Let's find out about Brandon Ruiki. Are you a cord cutter or a cable never? That was the term that he used as I bring you on here, Brandon.
I'm actually pretty old school. I'm still team cable. I don't know what it is. I like the old school guide. I like having the different choices between, I most of the stuff I watch too is like Food Network and all the different kid shows that are on. So
yeah,
I might be team cable until the end.
You watching Top Chef? My wife's in a Top Chef. I get to watch it. But yeah, I still got cable. I subscribe only for the sports, really, Sportsnet and TSN. Like switching back and forth. I like not having the delay. That's would be the app thing for me. And if I want to watch on my Fire Stick or my tablet or my computer, if you're on Shaw or Bell here, they each have an app that you can get, so you can add as many devices as you want. You don't need the old box anymore. So we'll see how it goes. The switching back and forth rather than all the different apps where you got a clunky switch. So we'll see how it goes. But nice having you on, Brandon. I know you're still doing Skates and Plates podcast, talking about all the Jets news, right? Big Jets news this week. Rasmus Kupari signing a 2-year deal to go to Switzerland. What impact do you think that's going to have on the Jets forward group?
Minimal. He started out really good. Like his start to the season was really impressive, and you thought maybe the Jets found a way to tap into his first round potential there. But then the same issues kind of plagued him, and he was the guy in the second half of the year that he's been throughout his NHL career, and that's one of the best skaters on the planet. And it's backed up by the data that there are, maybe a handful that are as good as he is in terms of straight line speed. But there's no real end product with him, right? Like there's just not the level of finishing and production and creativity and skill where you can, translate that speed into something that can help the team out. So, the one thing the Jets have a lot of, Remo, is they've got a lot of depth in this organization. They've got especially in the lower portions of the lineup, both up front and on the back end. And especially with the fact that they're going to have several, early 20-year-old prospects trying to make a big push to make the team. It's just kind of the nature of the beast with pro sports, is that there's a number of guys that I think have just surpassed him in terms of the organizational depth chart. And he was always going to be kind of like that NHL, AHL tweener, 12th, 13th, 14th forward type of a guy. And so if he can go back to Europe, it's a pretty damn good living, playing pro hockey in a place that he's probably a little more familiar with. You wish him the best and you move on here. But whether it's Gus, whether it's, Morgan Barron, whether it's the combination of, Cheberkov, Lambert, Barlow, a few other names you can toss in there as well, Parker Ford, maybe even. Like there's enough guys in the organization as a whole that I don't think the loss of Kupari is going to be felt too much.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with the bottom of the line of Mason Appleton, a UFA, Dominic Toninato. We saw him at times. UFA, Brandon Tanev, UFA. Do we see, as you mentioned, Parker Ford? Do you see Chibrikov come in? Does Brad Lambert get an opportunity? So something to watch out for, but we're all watching out for any nugget of news on Nikolai Ehlers, the upcoming UFA. We did have the report yesterday from Elliot Friedman saying that Ehlers wants to go to a team that has a chance to contend, and then noted the lack of ice time that Ehlers has gotten throughout his time with the Jets. Finally gets on Power Play 1 this past season and has a career year. Where are you leaning right now? What's your feeling as it changes here day to day on Nikolai Ehlers' future?
Yeah, I was feeling pretty good when Chevy had his postseason presser. And what was the line he used? We we want to make Nikolai Ehlers a Jet for life. And I'm like, oh, good. Well, usually that consists of a compelling offer to the player if you want to go down that route. And I felt pretty good about, maybe he is going to find a way to keep him in the fold, despite some of the, external things and factors that we all know, plague Ehlers' decision to either stay or to hit greener pastures. But the past week or so has not been very optimistic. And I would be really, really surprised at this point if we see Ehlers back in Winnipeg. Just because of the combination of, he's outside of Mitch Marner and Sam Bennett, he might be the third most attractive free agent on the market this upcoming summer. And so he's going to have a bevy of offers to deal with. Some are going to be from contending teams. Some are going to be from teams trying to take the next step who can offer him more money and maybe, 22 minutes a night and part of a chance to be, the face of the next wave of contention, maybe a couple years down the line there. And I wonder if the fact that I know the first power play was thrust upon him this year and the results came with it, which is great. But I just wonder if all those years of basically playing second or third fiddle when it came to 5-on-5 ice time, if maybe that's something that's stuck with him, that, if I can find a team out there that's a solid playoff team, maybe didn't necessarily have the regular season success that Winnipeg had, but a playoff team that can give me 19, 20 minutes a night, the money's pretty much the same. I could understand why he might want to try something out and kind of invoke a bigger challenge upon himself there. So I just think the fact that there's going to be so many teams that need that game-breaking talent that he possesses, and then can have either the combination of ice time, money, and contending win now status, that there's going to be a couple teams that just put themselves in a better position than the Winnipeg Jets can. It's a big hole to fill too, man. We talk so much about second line center, but Nikolai Ehlers does so much for this team that to kind of try to find a replacement for him, I'm not totally sure how they go about that, because there's not really a like for like swap for him in free agency. And then if you're going the trade route again, this team has, how many assets do you want to devote to a second line winger when you need to fill the second line center spot? And then depending on how you look at it, maybe a bigger, bulkier defenseman to play with Josh Morrissey or somebody else in the top six there. So it's going to be, I'm not very hopeful that he's staying, Remo, but I'm kind of intrigued at what the game plan is. Like what's plan B in terms of filling that hole? If we assume it's Connor Scheifele-Velarde on the top line, it could be just a completely rejigged second line going into next season.
Estakov, get in there, someone else. And I agree, if they don't sign Ehlers, who's going to play in that spot? And how do you get a upgrade at second line center? I'm looking at Frank Saravalli's free agent list. He's got Ehlers projected 6 years, 8.1. You can see some people have him at more. But in terms of other free agents, Marner, Bennett, Besser, Ekblad, Tavares, Duchesne, Marchand, Taves, Ehlers. That's how Frank Saravalli's laying it down on his rankings. And yeah, I'll have to tune in July 1. I don't think we've had a July 1 like this where you're like, okay, is this guy actually going to sign? I think Paul Stastny was the one when he left for Vegas. Last year was Brendan Dillon, but you knew he wasn't going to be re-signed. You didn't think there was a chance. I feel like there is still a chance that he could say, you know what, I like things in Winnipeg. I'm friends with all the guys. I know the city. I'm comfortable there. Like, is there really a team out there that could offer him top line minutes? You think he's going top line in Carolina? I think LA, maybe he would go top line. Is he much different than Fiala there? Or who else?
Vegas?
Else is? Yeah, Vegas.
I think Vegas is a team that, you kind of look at the teams that are in on the Marner sweepstakes, and you mentioned basically all those teams there. Mm-hmm. Obviously only one of those teams is going to get him. Maybe even the Maple Leafs too, who need to fill a Mitch Marner-sized hole in their lineup, could look at Ehlers as a replacement for him there. So I think probably those teams you mentioned there can offer him, and then that'll be their sales pitch to him, at least, is we'll get you a minutes increase, we'll get you a salary increase, and we feel like we've got every much as good of a chance to compete as Winnipeg does. But we want to give you a bit more of a prominent role here. And so, and Vegas is kind of the intriguing one here, because I think they're going to be really, really in on Mitch Marner. But if they strike out for Marner, Ehlers does seem like a bit of a perfect fit there for them. And they're a team that's really, really desperate to beef up on the wing. I mean, they've got their defense solidified down the middle. They've been strong since the acquisition of Jack Eichel, but as good as Dorofiev was for them last year, and they're kind of mixing and matching. They pick up Brandon Saad as kind of like a late season reclamation project. They're gonna make a splash. To me, it's just, do they get Marner or do they settle for maybe their plan B and an Ehlers or a Besser? But that would be a team that I think you could very easily say, like, hey, we won a cup a few years ago. We want you to play with Jack Eichel and make $8 million a year doing it. That's going to be a tough. It's going to be a tough pitch to beat if you're looking at it from Winnipeg's perspective.
Yeah, and if you're a Jets fan, Ehlers to Vegas, is that the most painful destination that he could land, or would it be seeing him in a Leafs jersey? Which destination would cause the most pain?
I think it has to be the Leafs still, doesn't it? Doesn't it?
I think Vegas. I don't know. Vegas, they're in the conference. You have that playoff rivalry. Although some people do have that hatred for the Leafs, and when the Leafs come to Winnipeg and it's half Leaf fans there, and you see 27, if he can even wear 27 in a Leafs jersey, whatever number he's wearing, I think there would be some pain. There's going to be pain, I think, no matter what. Carolina, less so. It's far away, not close to home. No one cares.
Carolina would be like you can go out there in like relative obscurity. I think Darryl Sittler had 27 for the Leafs. I was assuming this. So it would be even more weird, like a Leafs jersey and a different number too. I don't know if I could stomach that. So
here we go.
Carolina would be okay.
New Jersey we touched on earlier this week. Maybe I don't think you'd care as much. Any other East team would probably be fine except for the Leafs. Kevin K notes Ehlers in Vegas, followed by the Lawless introductory interview, would be an all-timer. And I'm just laughing at the thought of that. We can move on to happier topics. NHL draft, the Winnipeg Jets selecting at 28. I know you and your brother Tyson on the Skates and Plates dove into some players who might be available. I do wonder if they would look to trade that pick for some help now, but if they were to make a pick at 28, who did you guys look into?
Yeah, and I'm with you there, where if it was my choice, I would trade the pick, whether it's blue line help or center help. I think with the position the team is in right now, it's win now mode. The window's open. Let's especially second line center. Like, let's just go out there and fill that, and it's done with. But Chevy's never, if you look back at track record, the fact that he's never done that before kind of leads you to believe that he likes to do his work in season more so than at the draft. So I don't know if I'm necessarily expecting them to move that pick. If they keep it, I mean, there are some intriguing options at the back end of the draft. And I mean, this will probably make you feel old. It made me feel old, Remo, but Blake Fiddler is actually Vernon Fiddler's son. I legitimately thought Vernon Fiddler was still in the NHL. So that was a tough pill to swallow. But big righty defenseman with a little bit of pedigree there. Like that's the kind of guy you don't mind taking a shot on at the end of the first round. Jack Nesbitt, again, a big center who showcased a decent amount of skill in his draft year would be some intriguing ones. But the guy that I would like, and that we talked about how disgusting people would feel about Ehlers in a Leafs jersey and things like that. I don't think this will be a very popular pick, but it's also kind of timely too, because we saw Aaron Rodgers sign with the Steelers. But the Packers historically have shown great success in these succession plans where they draft a guy maybe a year earlier than you might want to, but you've got the most important position locked in long term, right? They go from Favre to Rodgers to Love. I wonder, no matter who you draft there, Remo, is going to be probably closer to 3 years away from making a legitimate impact in the organization. If you keep the pick, I wouldn't mind drafting the heir apparent to Connor Hrabchak. And it just so happens that, I mean, I guess it depends on the scouting rankings that you go by, but Josh Ravensbergen, the big goalie, Canadian, 6'5", I think he plays with Prince George. But the big dub goalie would be a really, that to me, that's an opportunity that if the pick is, we're making the decision to keep it, I don't think I'm passing up that opportunity. And then in theory, if your team is really high on this kid, you might have your goaltending solidified again for the next decade or so. And what better mentor for a guy like Ravensbergen to have than Connor Hrabchak, like another big, soft, boring goalie can learn from the ultimate big, soft, and boring goalie. So again, I wouldn't keep the pick to begin with. So it depends on what they do there. But if they ultimately stand pat, I'm not chasing a guy that could maybe help this team in 2 seasons from now, because I just don't think that player is going to be available. But if you can lock down the goalie position, and then that allows Ravensbergen or whoever you take, if it is a goalie there, it allows them to, play a couple years in junior, play a couple years with the Moose, and then start off as a backup to Hrabchak. I mean, the Predators, I don't think they minded having Pekka Rinne and UC Saros as a tandem for quite some time. And if the Winnipeg Jets could kind of create this transition succession plan, I think this might be the best opportunity to do so.
Tuned in here and until the draft at the end of June. We do have the Cup Final coming up, but we're talking about the Winnipeg Jets offseason. Brandon Ruiki, Skates and Plates podcast. You talked about the biggest thing on the Jets' to-do list, second line center. Like, what are the Jets' options there? Is it Jonathan Toews? Do they look to him? His name is being tossed around, or looking at a different direction?
I think Jonathan Toews should be signed, especially if there's interest from his side. Like, I think bringing Toews into the organization is a no-brainer. Penciling him in as your number 2 center, you can't make that commitment right now, because there's so much uncertainty about what his level of play is going to be, right? If you bring him in and it's like, oh my gosh, we've got the guy from 5-6 years ago, then sure, there's nothing stopping you from moving him up the lineup, and then maybe somebody kicks out to wing. Who knows what it is? But I just don't think you can start the season with that much of a question mark. That's just too big of a leap to take. So I 100% the Winnipeg Jets should go out and sign Jonathan Toews. And the interesting part too is that Adam Lowry's going to miss maybe a quarter of the season. So Jonathan Toews might have to play third line center to start the year. So it's not like you're giving him 5-6 minutes a night in the fourth line. There's a chance you bring him in that he's going to have to play a pretty significant role right off the bat. I just don't think you can have that be second line center for game 1 of the season. As far as targets, I actually don't mind the idea of John Tavares in Winnipeg, but I don't think that's going to be likely at all that he signs or that he's interested in signing here. As far as the potential spicy options, depending on if the Minnesota Wild can move him, maybe an offer sheet. You want to get into the offer sheet game and sign Marco Rossi to one, and that would lock up your second line center spot for the foreseeable future. And it also, you stick it a little bit to Bill Guerin and the Minnesota Wild and your rivals there. So Rossi to me is, I don't think we've heard Winnipeg too much in terms of potential landing spots for him, but I think he makes a ton of sense. And especially because the Winnipeg Jets, if you think he's legit, like, you can pay him on a long-term deal. He's there, he's signed. You can, promise him a bigger role than he had in the playoffs with Minnesota. And you go Scheifele, Rossi, Lowry, Toews down the middle this year. I think that would put the club in a really good spot. Outside of that, then you get into a bunch of question marks, and it really, at that point, you're looking at guys in their mid to late 30s, and then maybe reclamation projects. And so you wonder, like, is it even worth it to give up big assets at that point to bring some of those guys in? But I think I'd be giving a long hard look to Rossi in Minnesota, weakening a division rival and then solidifying that spot down the middle for hopefully the next 5, 6, 7 years.
You're talking with Brandon Ruiki, and this segment brought to you by Your Prairie Toyota Dealers. Toyota Dealers want to remind you to get in and go with the Toyota Tundra. Quality, that means it has the strength to take on any challenge off-road or hauling a heavy load, backed by the peace of mind knowing it's a Toyota. Take the road less traveled and comfort, room for teammates, friends, and gear. Leads from $154 weekly for 60 months at 5.39% APR with $71.99 down. Hybrid options available. Visit shoptoyota.ca. Moving on from the Jets, Brandon, let's talk Cup Final. Oilers win Game 1. How are you feeling about the series? What'd you think from what we saw in Game 1?
I mean, that was a legendary game. I mean, these two teams are playing at such a high level. But my main takeaway while watching it is that just like you don't need to create a narrative around whatever ultimately happens in this series, because that game was so tight. Both teams played so well that, you know, if Edmonton ends up losing, they're not chokers and can't win the big one. And if Florida doesn't end up going back to back, it doesn't mean anything about the greatness of that team or a statement on where they rank in terms of like all-time groups. It's just hockey at its best. I thought Edmonton needed Game 1 more than Florida did. I do wonder a little bit though, like everybody's just I feel like every time people pencil in a series to be a 6 or a 7 gamer, if it doesn't kind of turn things on its head and maybe we see a bit of a shorter series here. There is almost an aura of inevitability from Edmonton's side, where you just see this from the greats that they get denied once, they tend not to get denied 2 times. And I wonder if that maybe plays out here, but I'm not going to say that somebody's winning this series based off what we saw in Game 1. I mean, Florida came out of the gates firing in the first OT, and they were unlucky not to get the winner in the first 2 minutes of that period. Completely changes the complexion of the series if they get the goal, obviously. So I just think we're seeing the pinnacle of hockey right now, and by far the 2 best teams going toe-to-toe. Again, my big thing going into the series was going to be the Edmonton power play versus the Florida PK. Edmonton picked up the big goal there. Florida did kind of shut them down those first 3 power plays, though. I think that is where this series is going to be won or lost. And that's kind of my main focus going into Game 2 here is if Edmonton can sneak in 1 or 2 on the power play, might be a little bit too much for Florida to handle in Edmonton. But ultimately, there's really very, very little separating these 2 teams, as was evidenced throughout the game there.
Yeah, very close, very tight. 2 great teams. It was awesome hockey. Looking forward to the encore here for Game 2. And I agree, it does feel like inevitability with Edmonton. We talked earlier in the show. Gretzky losing and then coming back and winning the next year. Crosby as well. It's McDavid's destiny to do that. And they have the goaltending playing well. Draisaitl healthy. Kane healthy, laying the body on. Kasperi Kapanen reaching another level, Brandon. We'll see how it goes. Maybe Florida can spoil the party. And as we wind this down, is there another? We talked about the Jets offseason. Is there another team or player that's super intriguing to you? What they're going to do this offseason?
I mean, Dallas with the big move today. Unsurprisingly, I mean, you ship your goalie after the biggest game of the season. I don't think he was going to find himself back at the locker room next year. But like now, Dallas has to find a new head coach after all the prime candidates this offseason have been kind of picked over. So, I mean, I don't really, is it Jake Woodcroft? Like, I don't really know where they go in terms of bringing a new voice behind the bench there, but they've got a ton of decisions to make. Like Matt Duchene, who playoff-wise didn't perform very well, but was almost a point-a-game player for them this year. I mean, you have the legacy decision to make with Jamie Benn, even though his ice time plummeted over the past couple of seasons. I mean, Mason Marchment, is he a cap casualty? Can they improve their team? Like, and then the Robertson rumors that have come out here now, where maybe Jason Robertson becomes a bit of a cap casualty in Dallas. That's a team. Like, you've just got to be careful when you're in a situation like that as a team, not to completely lose your mind and blow things up, and almost kind of remind yourself we're a good team. We've got a good core here. It's as good as most teams in the NHL. We can't completely rejig how we do things just because the Edmonton Oilers are a bit better right now. But they could, like, that's a team that could blow it up and find themselves in a precarious situation next year. So there's going to be a lot of change in Dallas, and I wonder how they. I mean, Jim Neal's as good as it gets in the league, so I mean, I trust him, but like, I just wonder how they go about shifting all these really monumental decisions they have to make.
Not a lot of cap space, a lot of players to resign. That's the division rival. They knocked the Jets out of the playoffs. Well, looking forward to seeing how they respond. Brandon, thank you for coming on. It's been great talking with you, and looking forward to having you back on the show next week. Maybe we'll have some more Jets news nuggets to talk about.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it. Have a great weekend, man. We'll talk next week.
Thank you. There he is, Brandon Ruiki, Skates and Plates podcast. Get it wherever your preferred podcast app. I know a number of people on here listen to Apple Podcasts. I'm personally a Spotify guy, even though I have an iPhone. So you do have some NFL notes. Hacksaw, he's in the green room with his NFL notebook. I know he's been watching hockey as well as I load him in here. But here, first, we'll get to some fan feedback brought to you by Fans First, your best option for buying and selling tickets in Winnipeg with no fees. What you see is what you pay. Certainly the best price if you have a pair of extra seats to get rid of them. I can tell you, as someone who's used Fans First on occasion, where I've had to sell a pair of tickets, utilizing it is so user-friendly. The customer service is great, and you're getting paid the next day right after the game. We've been talking about Fans First for Jets season, but also they're Bombers. You can buy and sell Bombers tickets on there, so make sure you check them out before the home opener on next Thursday. And here, let's get to some fan feedback. I asked the chat, what do you think of Evander Kane lifting the Stanley Cup as a former Jet to lift the cup goes? And BA Split says, many hate Kane, but I would take him here anytime. What if this is as good as it gets, says Evander, big time jabroni. Phyllis says, I like watching Kane play for the Oilers. I'm glad. He appears to have figured things out in his life and can still come in and impact games like he's doing. And I did ask the chat as well, who are the other players to move on from Jets 2.0 and go on to win a Stanley Cup? Lucas Maciel mentioning Johnny Oduya. How could we forget him? And Ron Hainsey, both won shortly after leaving. So there's fans feedback brought to you by Fans First, your number one spot for buying and selling tickets by fans, for fans with no fees. All right, he's got his big notebook. Time to bring in Hacksaw Hamilton. Lee, thank you for coming on with me here today on a Beer Friday, right?
Mikey, how are you? Good to talk.
Yeah, nice talking to you, Lee. You sent me a picture earlier this week. You in your Edmonton Oilers hoodie. What'd you think of the Cup Final so far?
Excuse me. Game 1 was phenomenal. I kind of agree with Brandon. We saw the best of the best. I do think this thing is going 7. I did pick Edmonton to win. I think the most remarkable thing was Florida got beat by their own game. Edmonton, early in that third period, came back out, started to hit the body, finish the checks, really slowed down the Panthers, and really controlled the third period and a large chunk of overtime. I mean, the Oilers wound up with 47 shots on goal. Nobody gets 47 shots on the Florida Panthers because you're getting banged all over the ice and you can't get speed into the zone, etc. But Edmonton did. Now, let's say the two goaltenders were phenomenal. What they did third period, what they did in overtime, there were so many saves in traffic. I don't know how Bobrovsky and Skinner were able to find the puck through the maze of bodies, etc. End of the day, Edmonton is so razor sharp with the power play, and Draisaitl always finds an open seam to get open and get the puck on his stick, and his quick release was just something. But it also only counts as one win. We got game 2, and I have no doubt that Florida is going to come back out, and they're going to try to maintain 3 periods of heavy hockey, which means they're going to play body on body to try to slow Edmonton down. But I thought Edmonton beat Florida at the Panthers' own game with what they did third period and overtime. It's been great hockey.
Yeah, Edmonton laying the body for 3+ periods on Florida and coming out in overtime. So looking forward to tonight. And not only the NHL Stanley Cup Final, NBA Finals last night. Game 1 saw no one thought Indiana would take a game in this series, and there they were again. Halliburton, big shot to put the Pacers up 1-0. What'd you think of the NBA playoffs so far and this matchup?
Well, I thought the first half Indiana was just freaked out. They played at such a ridiculously fast tempo that they had no rhythm whatsoever. And of course, Oklahoma City's got a suffocating defense, and they really took advantage of it. I mean, think about Indiana. They survived 24 turnovers and 22 personal fouls. But the Pacers in the second half slowed the tempo down, hit a lot of threes, finished the night with 18 3-point baskets. And at the other end, they do play tough defense, and they do kind of grind on you, and they really disrupted the flow. And it was weird. Oak City had 98 shots in the game, Michael. Just amazing amount, but they only shot 39% from the floor and hardly hit any 3-pointers, which is not OKC's way of doing business. So it's a shocker. I don't think anybody in the building outside of Rick Carlisle, the guys on the floor, and maybe Halliburton's father in the stands, I don't think anybody thought that was going to be the outcome to the game. But I got to believe OKC will come back, a little bit different focus, a little more intensity. I still think Oklahoma City's going to win it. I said it was going to be a 5-game series, but Indiana, my goodness, they just don't go away. And maybe there's something with the fact that they survived in the Eastern Conference, Michael, because you look at how tough that conference is. It's a very different style of basketball. It's kind of back alley bar fight basketball, the way the Celtics play, the way that Knicks played. Indiana survived all that. So maybe there's some intangibles in terms of their learning how to be tough and deal through the adversity. But man, that was a phenomenal accomplishment. And what's that? That's the 4th game that Halliburton has hit on a shot with under a second to go in postseason. What a clutch player. Heave it up, hope it goes in, and it has 4 times.
Yeah, you look at the betting line, OKC -588 favorite to win game 2 and -333 to win the series. So the odds makers still have OKC as a heavy favorite, but Indiana has something to say about that. Moving from the basketball court to the football field, we got the news yesterday. We've been waiting for this for a while. Aaron Rodgers taking his talents to Pittsburgh. The Steelers' search for a new quarterback is over. Can it end differently for Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh than it did with the New York Jets?
Michael, there's all kinds of different layers to this Aaron Rodgers story. Does he have any gas left in the tank? I think he does. The situation in New York was not good. That was a troubled franchise, and he was asked to carry a workload that was really heavy, and he got hurt. His running back got hurt. Their offensive lineman got hurt. It was just a bad set of circumstances. And then, of course, they fired the coach and fired the general manager. So I think he's walking into a much better situation in Pittsburgh, because he's got Tomlin, who's never had a losing season. They've got running backs. They've got great tight ends. They just traded for DK Metcalf. And what they're looking for is a guy who's going to be consistent and make plays down the field. And that's what Aaron Rodgers does. And, of course, other side of the football, they got TJ Watt and the boys. And that kind of like steel curtain defense again. So he's in a better situation, surrounded by, I think, a better collection of talent. And he's not going to be asked to throw it 45 times a game. I don't think he's going to be running for his life as he was with the Jets. I'm going to be fascinated to see how quick out of the gate they come. Now, there's intangible things here. The next layer of questions, Michael. His personal life, he's out there. I mean, he is really out there. And Pittsburgh does not tolerate distractions. So I just wonder, will Aaron Rodgers be told, you're not doing Pat McAfee's show in the season? And how is Rodgers going to handle press conferences when they start asking him his opinions about some of his past statements about, did 9/11 really happen and who was to blame? His opinions about COVID. I mean, there's a lot of junk out there that's non-football related because Rodgers just likes to talk. They're going to have to control the distraction angle to Aaron Rodgers. And then the third layer is maybe the psychological thing with Aaron Rodgers. He's been a great leader. He's a baller, Mike. But you know what? It's always been his team. He's going to Pittsburgh. It's Mike Tomlin's team. They're going to run the football. They'll throw some, but they're going to run the football, and they're going to play great defense. So is he going to be able to cede a little bit of his ego because it's Mike Tomlin's team? It's not Aaron Rodgers' team. So I'm going to be fascinated. End of the day, though, 548 career touchdowns, only 169 interceptions. He does not screw this thing up. And Pittsburgh is desperate. Since the day Ben Roethlisberger got hurt, Pittsburgh's gone through 6 different starting quarterbacks in 3 years. The only one that's worse is the Cleveland Browns, who've had 40 different starting quarterbacks since 1999. So Pittsburgh's, they got them. They might be a 1-year rental. Maybe it's a 2-year rental if he stays healthy and plays well. But at least at the end of the day, they got a proven winner there rather than Mason Rudolph, who's a nice journeyman guy, or the kid from Ohio State, Will Howard. So it is weird, though, because I'd say 50-50, the opinion of Steeler fans, that they didn't want him, which I don't understand. Why the hell would you not want Aaron Rodgers even in the twilight of his career? So, Michael, this is going to be fun going to camp, but he can play. Will they park the distractions on the side, and will he allow it to be Mike Tomlin's team, not Aaron Rodgers' team? So check those boxes off as we go along.
Yeah, the Steelers, 21 straight non-losing seasons, looking to make it 22. And, you know, say we will with Aaron Rodgers, but you look at that Steelers quarterback room before they sign him, you're like, oh, they're going to go with these guys? So I think Rodgers a better option than who they had. A lot of quarterback news in your notebook this week. Atlanta quarterback controversy there. They drafted Penix and signed Kirk Cousins. Seems like you were headed to some kind of dilemma. They bench Cousins at the end of the year. What's going on there in Atlanta?
Yeah, let's just run through the notebook quickly. Atlanta's got 2 quarterbacks now. One of them that I'm not really sure that they wanted. But you know what? You need talent at that position, and you need depth at that position. And Michael Penix is going to be the starter, and Kirk Cousins is the most expensive backup in the history of the league at $37 million this coming season. But if Penix doesn't play well or Penix gets hurt, then you go to Cousins. So even though Atlanta was talking to Pittsburgh about the potential of a Cousins trade, but nobody wanted the bulk of the contract. The Falcons didn't want to eat a lot of the contract. Cousins is still there, and he has a track record of throwing for lots of yards and throwing for touchdowns, although last year was really a lousy second half of the season there. So that's the Atlanta storyline. Cleveland, they got 4 quarterbacks in the room, and they got Deshaun Watson still there. I mean, that's as bizarre as I have ever seen. I've covered the NFL and broadcast the NFL for a long period of time. But it looks like Kenny Pickett is taking the bulk of the number 1 unit snaps in the OTAs. And again, he struggled in Pittsburgh. He failed in Philadelphia. So we'll just see. Kevin Stefanski is a real bright light coach with quarterbacks. So we'll see if he can refine Pickett's flaws. And, of course, the kids, Dylan Gabriel out of Oregon is taking the number 2 snaps and has played pretty well. But I just got questions about his lack of size. I mean, he might be 5'11" if he stands on his tiptoes, and he's no 200-pounder. I know that. But he did do well in a unique offense at Oregon and, prior to that at Central Florida and other places. And Shadur Sanders is practicing with the scout squad. And this is kind of weird because this past week, his father, Deion Sanders, kind of ripped the media at a press conference at the University of Colorado. And he said, you guys are writing all this junk about my son. Well, that stuff wasn't true. Well, the NFL people that leaked all that information or talked to the media anonymously felt it was true. And at the end of the day, think about this. Cam Ward, who's the number 1 pick, who went out of Miami, Florida, Tennessee, he signs a contract that's worth $12.4 million per season. And Shadur, who many thought was going to be taken right behind Cam Ward, goes all the way from 1st round to 5th round. His contract is worth $1.1 million per season. So Shadir's got a lot to prove that he didn't screw this thing up, because I tend to think he kind of screwed it up with the way he acted. At least that was the information that was given to me by NFL people that I pipeline with. And then obviously, he was in a kind of a junk offense at Colorado that the wide receivers made the offense work, not necessarily Shadir Sanders. So right now he's running with the developmental squad, the practice squad. He's fourth on the depth chart. They'll probably keep him, but he might wind up on the developmental squad during the course of the regular season. And just think, if he had been as good as everybody thought he was, or his dad said he was, he would have made $12.4 million. Instead, he's making $1.1 million, and that's not even really guaranteed. It's fascinating there. One other quarterback note: Indianapolis, big setback. Anthony Richardson, number 1 pick 2 years ago, has played and really struggled with all the components of being an NFL quarterback, and he struggled with injuries. He had 3 different injuries. He's re-injured the shoulder joint on his throwing shoulder again in the OTAs, and they've shut him down, and they don't know if he's going to be ready for the start of August. Luckily for them, they do have Daniel Jones, the ex-New York Giant quarterback, who's now stepped in and going to take all the snaps. But AR-15, that was his nickname at Florida. Anthony Richardson's really having a tough go in the National Football League with the complexities of being a starting quarterback and defenses and running too much and getting hit. And he's had, like I said, 3 different injuries, and now the shoulder joint issue has flared again. So Mike got to see at some of the hot stories with quarterbacks in the league.
Perfect. Lee, thanks so much for bringing your notebook, always full, and let people know about what you've got right now at hacksawhamilton.com.
Well, for the O Canada network that follows me north of the border, check my website. It's all written every day. hacksawhamilton.com. There's an absolute ton of information broken down: baseball, basketball, the NFL, obviously the NHL, the playoffs, the roster moves, free agency, all that. And then I have my podcast. It's on YouTube, Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. Subscribe to that. We're chasing you guys. We've only been on 2 years. We just busted through 8,000 subscribers just on the YouTube channel. So it's working pretty well. But there's always a lot of sports out there. It's out there every day of the week. And love to have what I call the O Canada Network join us on my podcast, and they take part in what we call the Fans Forum at the end.
Yes, Lee, love the pod. Love all the work you're doing on Instagram as well. Thanks so much for coming here on Winnipeg Sports Talk and bringing the NFL notebook.
Good. Enjoy the playoffs, and we'll talk to you next Beer Friday. Thanks, Mikey.
Yeah, thank you. There he is, Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. Search for him on YouTube. He's on X, Instagram. Link in the description of this video or on the podcast. Connor Hrabchak is in the on-deck circle, ready to come in. But I got to give a shout out to Breezy Bend. WST Golf Reports brought to you by Breezy Bend, home of this year's Manitoba Open. Thinking about making Breezy your long-term golf home? Contact Corey Johnson at the clubhouse or visit breezybend.ca and for more info and to get on the waiting list. Sorry, I clicked off early. I'm bringing up the leaderboard at the RBC Canadian Open Hustlers there, and who's at the top right now? Who's their champ at number 1? What a name to be the leader at 12 under. Nick Taylor through 11 at 10 under. We got Lee at 9 under. One guy who won't be playing on the weekend, Rory McIlroy. He quadruple bogeyed 1 hole? Probably not. I don't think he's going to make the cut. Nope. +7. He's at the bottom, 149th. So Hustler will be back next week with all the info from the RBC Canadian Open. Looking forward to hearing about his experience. So you can check it out on his social media at Hustlerama. The Gold Eyes back at home this weekend. Great chance to get out to the ballpark. Fireworks tonight against Kansas City. That game at 6. Sunday, great family activities. Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame game. Tickets 204-982-BASE. Or you can come out with us Thursday, June 19 for the WST patio party at the ballpark. Like 10 tickets left. So if you want tickets to that, head to winnipegsportstalk.com. Click Gold Eyes tickets at the top. Grab your spot. But hey, if you can't make it that game, great weekend for some baseball. And Assiniboia Downs, Hustler, and I will be back with our duel at the Downs. He's got a bit of a lead on me making our picks for live racing Tuesdays, Wednesdays, select Mondays. Assiniboia Downs, VLTs, great dining options, free admissions, free parking. And if you're looking to attend the races, make a reservation in the clubhouse dining room and enjoy the world-famous prime rib buffet. And don't forget, check them out on YouTube as well. Kurt Stretch hitting you with the picks. Betting they'll be back at it next Tuesday. Let's bring him in. Connor Hrabchak out of the bullpen. At first I said on deck circle. He's a batter. Now he's a pitcher in the bullpen. Connor, thanks for coming back here. You ready for the marble race? Exclamation mark marbles in chat for those who haven't yet. There he is. Connor Hrabchak.
Yes, I'm ready for the marble race, Remo. It can't be a Friday on WST without the marbles heading into the weekend and some hacksaw, some NFL notebooks. So looking forward to it. Looking forward to the marbles and some great conversations on the show today. I especially enjoyed the sports media conversation, Remo. That was, something that we get so wrapped up in, like the Jets and what's happening right now. But those big picture sports media combos are always really cool.
That was fun. I don't know if we did touch a bit of, we had our own sports media talk to start the show. We touched on the new score bug. I don't know if I mentioned the digital ads. Did I say that in the first segment or just off air? The digital ads on the CFL broadcast were bothering me. When players would walk over them, they were glitching like crazy. There's like 4 of them on at a time. Usually there's 1. It was too much yesterday. It was overkill. I felt they weren't ready. Kept ruining the players. So I'll be tuned in tonight. I'm going to watch either way. I couldn't even tell you one of the companies that were on the ads. There was some Saskatchewan things, so maybe they're not working as well as they thought. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, well, okay, the ads have become such a big thing. I know you've talked at length about board ads in the NHL, but the NBA not having the Larry O'Brien trophy at center court that they used to have, the big logo, the big trophy logo for the NBA Finals. That's a big miss. I don't know if that's really ad related, but the NHL not having the Stanley Cup playoffs logo painted on the ice because they need to put a digital ad there. Like, I feel like this is exactly what I'm talking about. That used to add, and along with the painted on the ice Stanley Cup playoffs logo, used to add so much to the presentation, so much to the feel. Yes, you have the finals logo on there. Now it's just the YouTube TV logo just plastered all over the court digitally, and it's glitching and it's this and that, and it's really taking away from the presentation, in my opinion. And the finals used to be this thing where, it was a whole new like presentation package and all of these logos were on the court. And now it just looks like a regular season game with everyone wearing, the same colored t-shirt. And it just looks like any other playoff game, not necessarily the finals. That's a big, big miss, in my opinion, for the NBA. It's been going downhill for years now, but it's not great, the finals presentation.
Bring back on court logos.
Bring it back.
Bring them back. It's funny. I did like a tweet yesterday. What happened to the game I love? And they used to have the big Larry O.B. Trophy, and they don't have it now. And I'll give a shout out to Pete Blackburn on X, pointing out, I'm a big fan of sports logos, event logos. They've gotten stale. They've gotten the same. I do, you look at here's this. The Stanley Cup logo used to go, on the left side of the jersey facing it. Look how ugly this is right next to Connor McDavid C, because you got to fit in the nice ad here on the left side. This is hideous. I don't know. Make it. I liked it better when the Stanley Cup logo was not right next to the C. Too many patches on jerseys these days. Here we are. The old man yells at a cloud segment. Make things the way they were, right?
This is my old man yells at cloud take. This is, I'm with you on this 100%. Put the Stanley Cup playoffs paint back on the ice. Put the patches on the jersey back where they're supposed to be. Put the NBA Finals trophy back on the court. Put the finals in cursive back on the court. Like, all of these things added to the presentation. And now they're gone because of digital ads. And that really sucks.
Yeah, again, sometimes I can't even watch the game because I'm too focused on the digital ads slideshow going on the boards.
The best board ads, Remo, the ones with a puck that like go across the boards, like an animated digital board ad, and there's a puck in the board ad. It's like, what is the point of that? You have a puck on your board ad? I mean, anyways, we could go on and on.
We can go on and on. We'll go on tonight's game. Panthers, Oilers. Oilers slight favorite, -111. The total in this one is 6. And if you think Florida's going to come back and win, you can get them at +175 to win the series. And let's see. For tonight's game, I don't know if you got any props you like. The score, Draisaitl, the big favorite, +113. McDavid, 133. How about Sam Bennett, +200, leads the playoffs in goals. Chris Meanie mentioned that. Barkov, +225. Corey Perry, he's on top power play, top line, +260. Not bad. And then you go down to Evan Bouchard. Depends who you like. I don't know if you got any picks. If you like shot props, cool bet, some good options. I do enjoy betting on shot props. Sometimes you don't have to rely on them to score. Maybe a bit more predictable. Evander Kane, 2.5. I don't know if they got hit props. He had 9 hits last game. But any leans here?
Yeah.
Or
I will say, the Corey Perry to get a point, +104, just because he plays on the top line at times. He's playing on the top power play at times. All of those things in the series. If you think Florida's going to come back, the number is, I mean, I did say at the start of the show, I do think Edmonton makes it 2-0 tonight. So if you think Florida's going to win, you might even want to wait a little bit, but +175 is pretty good. Being down 1-0 in a series where you lost in overtime, like those are pretty good odds if you think Florida's going to come back and win. For me, Remo, Montreal at home to the Toronto Argonauts tonight. Montreal Alouettes in the CFL, -5 is the favorite. That line has moved a little bit. I believe it was -3.5, then it was -4. Now it's -5. Our CFL 110 picks that I submitted to Hustler the other day, I got Montreal at -4. So that line has definitely moved in Montreal's favor. But I said off the top of the show, I'll say it again, I like Montreal to beat Toronto tonight in the CFL as well.
Yeah, if you're looking at receiving props, Austin Mack, his total for receiving yards up to 62.5. I think when that came out earlier in the week, it was in the 50s. And he was awesome 2 years ago, went to the NFL last year, ended up returning to Montreal near the end of the season. Still like the over 62.5. And I'm curious, how is this Toronto defense going to be after losing so many players? And you look at passing. Nick Arbuckle, what was his total? 240. I think it was a bit lower earlier in the week, 248. And we saw, both teams yesterday passing for major yards. It was Drew Brown with over 400, Trevor Harris like 280 or something. So maybe you want to hit the overs on these. We don't have any totals for the other or any other props for the other games, but Hamilton -1.5 in Calgary, and BC is -5.5. home against Edmonton. I like BC at home with Nathan Rourke, Snoop Dogg. I think I picked Hamilton against Bo Levi. Is it a still revenge game, or are we past that? I don't know what you thought of the weekend's games.
Yeah, I in our CFL 110 picks, I took Hamilton. I believe when I submitted it though, they were +1, so it was like a pick'em, and they were actually the underdog. So now it's flipped, and it's still basically a pick'em at -1.5, but Hamilton's actually the favorite. And I did take BC -5.5 at home. I just think Nathan Rourke gets it done. But having said all that, I took Ottawa +3 last night in our CFL 110 pick, so I'm 0 for 1 going into the weekend here. Hopefully Montreal, Hamilton, and BC can all cover for me so I can get back up on the leaderboard. I'm pretty sure Hustler took Saskatchewan. I don't know who you took last night, Remis, but I'm behind in our CFL 110 picks already.
I had Saskatchewan. I wasn't feeling that great about it, but I stuck with them, and they won. So I'll take it. And I did see Coach Keyser wants to know how my DraftKings picks are so far. He said he picked Willette, who got hurt. I had Pimpleton, did not get the targets. It was Hardy. That receiving group in Ottawa, very good. And Schnitzy says take the over on Rambo, Alexander's favorite target in Montreal. We are tuned in. The Sea Bears are in action against the winless Honey Badgers. Brampton, the Sea Bears -3.5 point favorites. I haven't seen their lineup. I got to check if they're getting those reinforcements. They are returning home Wednesday, and there is goal. You can bet on the Gold Eyes if you're heading to the game. Connor, I can't believe this is an option. Only money line action. The Gold Eyes -122 at home against Kansas City. So if you're heading out to the game, check out the Gold Eyes under Canadian baseball. Isn't that incredible? You can bet on the Gold Eyes. I don't know if they have home run props.
No, they don't have any props. It's just money line, money line, which is still like getting the Gold Eyes on there is pretty awesome. They did lose last night, so they'll look to bounce back tonight. I will say, you were talking about DraftKings there. I'm feeling good after just one game. I took Samuel Emelis for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, had 8 for 133 and a touchdown last night. Trevor Harris's number one target. So my DraftKings lineup looking good heading into the weekend. I have Nathan Rourke as my quarterback with McInnes. I got a big stack, hoping that they can come through for me on Saturday night. So feeling good about my DraftKings as well.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to that game Saturday. That's the only Saturday night game of the year. A lot of Friday night games.
That's surprising to me. That's surprising. Yeah,
they didn't have it last night. They've gone with talking about sports media. CFL's gone with Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, one game a day. Going away from the doubleheaders. There are, I think, when NFL starts up, they don't have the Sunday night games, but that is a thing for them in the summer. I don't mind watching it on TV to end the weekend. We didn't have any Sunday night games here last year, I don't think. There may have been one on the road, so we'll see how the schedule shakes up. I actually haven't really dove in. I did look to see there was a lot of 8 p.m. Friday starts. Which I didn't mind. I like a good late game.
Yeah.
That's it for the cool bet lines. Here we're going to bring up the marble race. Got to get the theme song ready, but it is.
Yep.
Yeah, so get your last call. This is the last call. 195 people in, 262 in chat. Only 124 likes. So if you're like one of the 195 people who've entered the marble race and you haven't hit the thumbs up, help us out. It doesn't cost you anything. It's right down below. It tells YouTube we're putting out some good content. And maybe it'll show it to more people. You're putting your name in for the free WST hoodie to the winner. So this is your opportunity to do that. Come on, we got a last chance here for the marble race. And it is NHL Combine Week. We've been talking about the lack of Winnipeg Jets news, but how about the Jets going into the archives, pulling up some heaters here for social media. Some people saw this picture from the archives the Jets posted.
Incredible.
Didn't know who this was. Might have taken you a second. The patch on the jersey says Research Development Camp 2010. Very nice NHL logo jersey. This is the captain, Adam Lowry. Didn't always look like a grizzled veteran NHLer. This is him as a pre-draft. This is a wild picture. You think of him with a beard, tall, but a very young Adam Lowry here.
Yeah, and you do think of him with the beard, and the recency part of it too, Remis, is like coming out of the playoffs with the 2 rounds that they just played, and he was growing the playoff beard. So like, especially so as of late for Adam Lowry. But yeah, this is an incredible photo. A young Adam Lowry. I think the Jets posted Josh Morrissey's photo as well, maybe a week or so ago. But yeah, this one's solid, especially with how Adam Lowry's beard has taken shape in the playoffs the past couple of years here.
Yeah, they posted Eric Comrie.
That's who it was. Okay,
from his combine 2013. I think he looks the same, Comrie.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit older, but yeah, Comrie's still got that young face. Lowry, maybe because he got a beard, go from beard to fresh face. Bit different. Shoutouts to the Jets digging into the archives, bringing out some excellent photos. We need some, we don't have any Jets con. We're talking about Rasmus Kupari leaving for Switzerland for 3 days. Ehlers, anytime he gets mentioned by an insider, we'll be talking about it here. So We are winding the show down on a Friday. Let's get to the Marble Race theme song, Tristan Rivers music.
It's Friday, another week of work's gone by. You deserve to treat yourself, maybe an ice cream cake or a bottle of rye. Phone the whole day in, so lax you can't deny. Why use effort even for pleasure? Give life a try. It's time to do a marble race. No skill separated best to worst. Marble race. Just like marbles with the punctuation first. Marble race. Don't spare or you will suffer unexplained. Marble race. Get to your mark before it's too late. Set go.
I love that. I love the acoustic one. That's how we got all these versions. I said I like unplugged versions of songs, especially when it's like the most ridiculous thing and they turn it unplugged. And I said, Tristan, you got to make Marble Race unplugged for me. And then he went nuts and made like 10 versions. So love that one. Closing the Marble Race. We got 201 people in. I'll set up Connor.
Nice.
What you got going on this weekend? Big plans?
Big plans. Heading out to Winnipeg Beach, Remo. And we've got WST Sunday Live. We took last weekend off, but WST Sunday Live, 9 a.m. Join us right here on the Winnipeg Sports Talk YouTube channel. Hopefully we get some sort of Jets news to talk about in the next day or two here. But regardless, we'll be talking about the Jets, the upcoming draft, the Stanley Cup Finals, things of that nature. And I might be doing it while camping from Winnipeg Beach. I'm still undecided on whether I'll be out there Sunday morning, but I've done it before. Done a live stream from Winnipeg Beach. So the service is good enough out there. We love camping. So that's what I'm doing this weekend. What about you, Remo?
Kids activities, birthday parties. Got
like
my
every
son's
weekend for you, man.
Yeah, it's my son's kindergarten graduation tonight. Little ceremony for that happening. So
Nice.
yeah, that's every weekend. June. I got like birthday parties every weekend. So, but yeah, you're doing Sunday Live at the beach. I will say I was driving down south last week, and I told my wife to take the wheel, tethered to my phone, and started posting on WST Instagram and editing videos from the passenger seat. So it's amazing to me. Data, readily available and cheap. And then data more readily available and cheap. You can do it from anywhere. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, no kidding. And I don't know, there are some camping spots where the service is not good enough whatsoever, but Winnipeg Beach is not one of those spots. There's good enough service out there. So we'll see. We'll see if that's where I end up doing the Sunday Live from. But either way, join us at 9 a.m. And it should be a fun episode as we talk about the Stanley Cup Finals and more Jets offseason stuff.
Yeah, Jets offseason. We're counting down to the draft, free agency. One thing I won't be doing, picking up a Nintendo Switch 2. That's all. I don't know about you. It's all over my timeline. Released this week. The new Mario Kart. I don't know, $700 for the Switch 2. Bit steep. I got a family, Connor. I can't afford $700 for a Switch 2. I don't know if you're picking one up to hit up Mario Kart World this weekend.
No, I am not. I just splurged on a PC, so that dropping another $700 on a Nintendo Switch 2 not in the cards right now for me either. But hey, I have a Nintendo Switch 1, and the first one, and can't say enough good things about it. Love playing all the Mario games on there. So I don't know if it's worth $700. Haven't played it, but it's out there if you have $700 to buy a Switch.
I might pick up. I still haven't played any of the games on the Switch 1. I got kids. Maybe I could pick one of those up for at a reduced rate. I never played Mario Kart on there. Mario Party. I don't know if anyone in Switch. We got any gamers in Switch? You'll be hitting up Switch 2 this weekend. I did watch episode 2 of that Apple TV show with Owen Wilson. I'm into it. Stick golf show. They're trying to do the golf Ted Lasso, I think, right?
Yeah. Is there a BLEAV sign just like Ted Lasso? I love Ted Lasso. It's probably like one of my favorite shows ever that I've watched. So if they're trying to recreate it, maybe I'll give it a shot.
Maybe. Okay, let me get these marbles in. We have 203. I gave you a marble, and I gave Hustler in all capitals a marble.
Nice.
Let me see.
Okay.
Marbles.
I need a new hoodie anyways, so this is good.
Oh, you do? I don't even know if I have one for you here. Gotta see. I gotta pick a track too. Let me fire it up. What's everyone else in chat up to this weekend? Shout out to Spency. He's offered to lend me his Nintendo Switch. Thanks, Spency. I would play with my kids. I'm playing Pokemon Red with my son, getting him into the OG Pokemon. The kid's still into Pokemon these days. It's wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see. Who else is in here? Jack Toon says Switch needs more sports games. Yeah, I'm mostly playing in NHL. What do you got here? Phyllis got family stuff. So let me pick a track. Oh, Rob Pepper says he's going to the beer festival. Yes, Flatlanders taking place. It's not like the beer and beverage festival. You would go with some friends and a lot of what mixed drink. I don't know what's the term that you ready to drink beverages, where I think if I was in high school and those around, it could be very dangerous. Now I'm a bit older and smarter. So.
Now you're not in high school and you have birthday parties for your kids all weekend.
I gotta look after kids. I don't have time to be sampling ready to drink beverages like I used to. Let me pick a good track here. I'll go with Fantastic Marble Activity. Ooh, Snuka says just bought an e-bike. That goes uncomfortably too fast. I've had some e-bike experience. Very fun. And if you don't, we don't really have any hills here, but if you did, going uphill, much easier on an e-bike.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I have gone. So how many marbles do we have here? 203. What time is it?
Nice.
3:23. Jeez, I've gone way too long.
I think your clock's ahead by about 4 minutes. But...
Okay, this computer says 3:19. So we got to get out.
That's what I've got.
We got to put this on podcast. Make sure you're subscribed. Even if you're on here on YouTube, help us out. Go to Apple Podcast, Spotify, whatever you want. Subscribe. CFL 110 is also out as well with Jeff and Hustler. 2 episodes teeing up the season. They haven't expired yet. We only had 1 game, so make sure you check out the CFL 110 podcast feed too. And I think we hopefully have a newsletter coming out.
Yep.
Subscribe to that. WinnipegSportsTalk.com. Click on the bottom and put in your email, or put in the link in this description on YouTube and podcast. And you can sign up. We'll send out like once a week updates on, hey, what's going on with the show? What have you missed? Contests, events, all that's fun stuff. So you do want to get signed up for the newsletter. All right. We are doing, which marble race is it? It is called the Fantastic Marble Activity. Fantastic Marble Activity. Let's go. I can't wait to do play-by-play. Let me take a drink of water. Gotta lubricate the voice.
Your best Paul Edmonds impression coming right up.
Yeah, do my best Paul Edmonds. Best Kurt Contois from Assiniboia Downs. And they're off. They're going down the Plinko start here. XX Revolution in front. They're going over these gears. Russ Lowen is in there all alone on the left side. Sam's scarf closet in there. They're crossing this thing here into the orb. Ray, this Wildo, Andrew Haleko, Mrs. Jones. They're all in there. Who will come out and be in the lead? It's Cigars for Everyone. Cowboy, not far behind. A whole pack of marbles out of the orb and into this curve. It's Cigars for Everyone. This Wildo and Cowboy. 1, 2, 3, but it's anyone's race. At this point, they're going through the pegs. Cigars for Everyone makes it. And this Wildo on the track into the spinning log. both getting knocked around, make it through. Cigars for everyone this Wildo. Michael Rosen in there, Darth Skater, Pretty and Pyong, and Connor, you're in there. You're top 10 right now.
Here we go.
Here we go into the spinny, slidey snake thing, but it's cigars for everyone. He's got the wheels. Kent Reimer, Michael Rosen, and this Wildo's still hanging around. Big funnel coming out. Who will go into the funnel first, and then the orb? I love coming up, or Hustler comes with all the terminology for these parts. Oh, what Donnie Boy? Oh, Donnie Boy. Did he just take a shortcut? Oh, he finished. Oh my God.
Wow.
Donnie Boy.
Wow.
Out of nowhere.
Donnie
Was
Boy.
that Donnie Boy? What just happened? Elimination. And he falls and hits the thing. Donnie Boy. Wow, Donnie Boy out of nowhere. Okay, I thought we were gonna have a crazy finish, but somehow Donnie Boy thought he was gonna get eliminated and wins. People are not happy in chat about that one, but it is Donnie Boy. Robert Swanson says lame. I don't know. Donnie is a shortcut. When you have this many marbles, crazy stuff happens. So Donnie Boy, the recipient. We have one finisher. We got 6 finishers, but here comes the fire, burning up everyone. Well, that was crazy. 135. That wasn't supposed to happen. Donnie Boy, what do we do here? Do we do a re-race? Different track?
You want to run it back?
Do you want to run it back here for Donnie Boy? Donnie Boy's in here every day. Congrats.
Well, Donnie Boy wins.
Donnie
Boy wins.
Boy. Well, there's not even a lot of finishers. Look, Donnie Boy, this Wildo, Johnny Bender, AJ, D Chalice, Duck Dad. All right. People are giving it thumbs down. I'm getting booed off the stream here. 18 over par, Darth Skater. All right, I'll go back to a regular track. That's not supposed to. When you have so many marbles, weird stuff happens. Weird stuff happens. But Donnie Boy is the winner. All right, I'll go back to a standard track. I'm not gonna mess around. People want me to do a redo. Bravo Bry says, what does he say? We've had replay races. I'll go back to an original track. Let me see what I have.
Schnitzy says propelled.
Yeah, he got propelled.
Donnie Boy was propelled to the finish line. So it's not in the rule book. Not in the WST rule book.
All right. I got
we're actually following it.
Okay. We'll do I'll pick a different one. That's fine. Here, how about this one? Is this one still around? I used this one before. No, it's not there. I'll just pick an OG marbles.
Pick an OG.
track.
Yeah.
I'll go to we haven't done the laboratory in a while. We'll go to the laboratory.
Nice.
No one's going to get some crazy finish there, are they? Oh, I like the dojo. I think, is the dojo like half decent? Where's the laboratory? There's no laboratory? That used to be one. Okay, that is not there anymore. What's the other one that I have? Let me check my list. I got a list of other ones. We got the factory. Oh, Cosmic Chaos. Twists and Turns. Is Twist and Turns still around? We got Twists and Turns. And what's the other one? Hold on. Oh, here's the laboratory. I think I like the laboratory.
Sure, let's do that one. Sure.
We got the laboratory. I'll load all the names. June 6th, 203 marble. Record. Okay, I haven't done it for a while. We'll go into the
Let's do it.
Coils of Power. Who said that we suck? Someone said that I suck because the marble race. Son of Dirk says WST sucks because the marble race fluked. I have no control over that. Come on, Son of Dirk. You're here. You're here every day. Come on. How could you say that? Son. We're in the laboratory. We're starting off again. It's 3:26 here. We're winding it down. I'm not playing the marble race song again. We are going through the redo.
What if Donnie Boy wins again?
Yeah, people are asking me.
Funny.
Yeah, he says, what if I win twice in a day? Well, we'll give you an extra prize. But Snuka 2002, Gintelligence in there. And who else? Chucker, Dale Berzuk, Mary Jane, Big Daddy Brent. Anyone's race at this point in the laboratory. Going through the curtains, who's going to get held up? They are slowing some people down. And you have this turning thing. Who's going to get on there? Dunk Dynasty. A Monkey Is You. But it's Chucker and Dunk Dynasty going down the slide into the orb. Who will come out first? Dale Berzuk, Mary Jane, Gintelligence in there. Oh, Dan, Jets fan, over the top rope. Nicole J, anyone's marble. Dunk Dynasty gets out first. A proud MB Canuck going down the funnel. Who's going to come out first? Snuka's in there. Chucker, Ray. All right, going through the swinging logs. Oh, Dunk Dynasty denied. It's proud MB Canuck shot through. Then Chucker. The final stretch coming down. Who's going to be? Rob Pepper making a push. Smurfy, but it's Chucker. Gets through. Oh, man, Chucker.
Wow.
That was a bit of a short one, but nice finish there with Chucker. Smurfy,
Nicely
99.
done.
Nicely done, Chucker. Chucker. Wasn't it? I did see on X that it was Ferris Bueller's 40th anniversary of when he went to the Cubs game. Weren't they yelling Chucker at the pitcher? I don't know. I've actually never seen that movie. I don't know if I should admit that on here. Long list of good movies that I've never seen. I can make our top 10. We're not going to do that. They're all coming through. Everyone's finishing. Isn't this what you guys wanted? You wanted everyone to finish. No eliminations, no top ropes. Only if you see Shane Payne. iHeart's in there. Chucker. People are saying one more race.
No. Yeah.
Who's Schnitzy is saying Chucker also got propelled by the swinging propellers.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah, it was even more propelled this time than last time.
Mike Cochran says, I didn't win. Redo. Way to go, Mike Cochran.
Nice.
Way to go, Mike Cochran. There's Chucker, Smurfy, Stella, Dale Berzuk, Kevin Soldier, Cruiser, Proud MB Canuck, who's in there all the way. JDSM. Oh, former winner Chud's Power Sports. Dave Conan, Darth Skater. I'm not going to read off all of them. There's 159 finishers, but Bravo Bry, Drew Music, Dunk Dynasty, Rob Peppers, Greg M, Running Man, Rob Wright, Tristan Rivers. There's Hustler, Scott Westman, Cowboy, Al Broderick, Frosty. They're all in there. CFL 60 OG, Ryan Kibbins, Russell, and so many. All caps, Kyle, Big Uke. We still haven't had a Edmonton Sports Talk winner. Still waiting. See Eagle Eyes there. Mary Jane, Wayne Bretsky, Comment. Everyone's there. T-Well. So many names here. Can't read them all. But shout out to all the participants in the marble race. Ty Petcoat is Chucker and Donnie Boy both get him. Sure. Contact us, winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com. We'll hook it up. And there's all the non-finishers, all the DNFs. I got to pick someone to raid. Thank you, everyone who tuned in today and tuned in all week. So, Connor, we'll be back here Monday. You and I. Hustler will be in transit talking Cup Final. Counting down to the Bomber home opener Thursday. I will be at the game Thursday. I think you'll be there as well.
Oh, yeah.
What else do we have? NBA?
CFL this weekend, NBA. Yeah, we got a lot to talk about coming out of the weekend. Hopefully some Jets news. I'm still hoping.
Like
Hopefully
what? Like
we get at least
an Ehlers signing? I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, yes, sure. But like that would be great. But even like a Hayden Fleury signing or like a Morgan Barron signing, like it doesn't have to be the key free agent coming back. Just anything to discuss would be great. But yeah,
we had Kupari all week. We talked about him.
Kupari's not coming back though.
Going to Europe.
I mean, I guess. Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to this weekend of sports. Stanley Cup Final continuing. CFL all weekend. Opening weekend still going on. And then, yeah, even though there's no Zach Collaros next week for the Bombers, I am so excited to be back at Princess Auto Stadium cheering on the blue and gold. So we'll be previewing that all week long, and I'm looking forward to it, Remo.
Yeah, I hit the wrong button there. But yeah, looking forward to that
good.
next week. We'll be here. Shout out to everyone in chat who came out this week, hung around to the end. I see 184 to 200 of you still here. Appreciate all the support. We are here because you guys keep watching. And shout out to our sponsors as well for keeping this show going. Rollies Transfer, St. Vital Dental, Canadian Club, Manitoba Battery, Princess Auto, Aikens Lake, F Apparel, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, Little Brown Jug, Breezy Bend, Winnipeg Gold Eyes. Gold Eyes night, still tickets left. We're almost sold out, so make sure you get in on that. Assiniboia Downs, Ben Moss Jewelers, and Prairie Toyota Dealers. For Connor Hrabchak, I'm Michael Remis. Bye-bye.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.